Shadow Show.
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 Shadowing it.
I mean, I walk in today, and by way of good morning, I'm walking into the studio with the command and respect that comes with such great power of running a company. And the first thing I hear is someone dressed in a costume screaming, "Dan's wrong about Kevin Durant." Dan is wrong about Kevin Durant, and evidently there hasn't been room in the show the last couple of days to tell me that I'm wrong about Kevin Durant. Jeremy, why do you think I'm wrong about Kevin Durant? What have I said recently that's wrong about Kevin Durant? His Suns last night beat the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat looked terrible at the end of the game.
Oh, so Jeremy's in a costume today.
We're not on video right now, so that doesn't really work as a joke, we're not going to the visual joke of Jeremy as the Joker. But, Jeremy, you were saying that Kevin Durant, and I'm wrong how?
I believe that Kevin Durant is a happy person. I believe that Kevin Durant loves being a troll on social media. And I don't think that there's an unhappiness that comes with responding to randos on the internet or picking a fight with Stephen A. Smith. I think he thrives in it. I think he loves it. And I'll tell you, if I had the carte blanche to be able to just fire off whatever I wanted at the people criticizing me for doing my job or who I disagreed with about the structure of my business or my profession, I would be doing it 100 out of 100 times if I could without repercussions.
Why don't you try that one day?
Yeah.
I
Beat
won't.
Durant for a day.
We'll give you carte blanche.
Well, you can't give it. His other employers and the ramifications that he would have if he did that, you're not in charge of those.
I'll talk to them.
Okay, you'll talk to the Miami Heat and Bally's about something that he's done.
Not Bally's.
Not Bally's
other
anymore.
We don't need to talk about it.
Okay,
Yeah,
we
but
don't need
let's
to talk
not.
about Bally's
Let's
anymore.
just not, please.
But you're going to talk to his employers about you guys. Do you agree with that? Do Izzy and Amin agree with the idea that Kevin Durant strikes you as wandering the earth happy?
I don't believe that when somebody is doing that, they're doing it as a response to, I'm so happy, let me take this guy out. It's a response. It's an angry response, right? And the freedom to do it does give you joy. But the fact that he focuses on that, to me, especially given how many things he can enjoy in life in his situation, tells me there's something there that doesn't make him happy. This is an amateur, psychiatrist on my part during the Shadow Show. So I wouldn't say this to Kevin Durant's face. It's just what I believe to be the case in most human beings.
We're all over the place. He's angry. He's like,
I just
he's
think
happy. What is Durant? I need to know.
Why could he not just be a person who's our age, who's just spending time on the internet, like at 1 a.m, like the rest of us, and just replying to people? I don't think that there has to be this inherent anger or unhappiness that comes with it. I just think that he's a dude who grew up on the internet. That's all.
I would say, though, as I've seen, the loneliness of men turned trolls on the internet, as I've seen social media become a festering pit of angry, lonely men getting quote-unquote enjoyment out of trolling, doesn't really strike me as joy. The constant fighting with others doesn't strike me. Like, maybe you like competing at all times, and I suspect that Kevin Durant probably does like competing at all times. But I will tell you, just me personally, who has never minded a fight in 30 years, I'm tired of fighting the internet. It's a losing proposition, no matter how much power, because I'm not afraid of saying anything. Like, there aren't consequences to me on things that I say, but I'm tired of fighting the internet. I don't want to fight anymore. Like, I've been fighting here for a while, and that's not my disposition. I don't find joy in the fight, but maybe Kevin Durant does find joy in the fight. Certainly does at basketball.
Do you remember when he was with the Warriors and the heart of it was, hey, we play with joy here, right? And then it just felt like that joy was just choked out of that team. And it felt like Steve Kerr was kind of pointing directly to KD saying, it doesn't feel like you are playing with that joy that we've won championships with, etc. That was noticeable there. you have everything you could want, and you're focusing on the fans not wanting or not cheering for you as much as they cheer for Steph Curry. You're focusing on the negatives. And again, this is not a knock on Kevin Durant. This could just be his personality type, and it is what it is. Maybe he was born to sort of bring out the truths about the NBA and call out all trolls. But
A weird thing to be born for.
Exactly. But it just doesn't strike me, as you say, Dan, as somebody that's looking at everything with a joyful attitude.
I think KD needs to go outside and touch some grass, do some yoga, like get offline. Because the whole point is the more time you spend online, the unhappier you are. And I feel like that's, at least personally for me, the more I'm on Twitter, the more I'm on Instagram, the more I'm on whatever, it's like, damn, this sucks. Right? And then if you live on that just perpetually and you have that much money and you have that much access to just saying whatever you want without these repercussions, it continues to be bad for your mental health.
What's his screen time? I need to
trillion.
know.
I just think that there's an ability to not really be on social media all the time, check in every few days and respond to some trolls yourself and mess with them. It's not like Kevin Durant is some white dude in his 20s turning into the Joker.
I will say he seems to be finding joy in sort of setting people straight at this point in his career, using the
Exactly.
trolls
This-
to educate the rest of us.
No one, I'm with you, and you guys are never gonna agree with me because I thought he was saying "we" going down the slide, and none of you did. So we just see things differently, and that's fine.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. You take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys, man so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize, white girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan, if you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that, stop that, stop that.
I know I've stumbled onto something that'll be fun for us to talk about when Amin gives me his own private show during our introduction, where he gives me his opinions on Kevin Durant that probably would have been useful for the audience to hear as well, given that he's our basketball or one of our basketball experts. But you were saying, during the introduction to Only Me.
Well, I mean, you guys were on a roll. I didn't want to break it up. Everyone had their own pop psychology degrees out, and with the pipe and the tweed jacket. And I believe that Mr. Durant is afflicted with this kind of behavior.
That's a pipe? You're
Is
talking
that
on
a
a phone.
pipe?
The
That
weird
looks like
pipe.
a phone. That
a
does
pipe.
look like a phone. I've got patches on my elbows too. Everybody's calling me sanctimonious today, so I should have dressed the part. I should
Today?
have gone tweed. I should have gone tweed there.
This is not an echo chamber.
So the irony of our entire conversation is, if you want to know what upsets Kevin Durant, it's that kind of conversation.
I just said that in here.
It's the idea like, well, I'll tell you why he's upset or why he's having a good time. He would just say, none of you people know me. You've never had a conversation with me. How do you know whether I'm happy or not? Also, can't we just talk about basketball? That's what Kevin Durant would say to that.
All totally fair, and the information that we have is you're smoking weed all the time. You seem to be fighting on the internet all the time, and when we saw you playing basketball, you left a champion, and everyone wanted to punch each other, even though you guys were winning all the games, and it was a little confusing to us because you went and did the thing you wanted to do. You won your championships. You thought you were securing your legacy. You didn't secure your legacy. And now we're talking about whether or not you seem happy or not, because we haven't seen a lot of joy in what it is. The results of what you're showing us publicly doesn't have a lot of mirth in it.
Well, I think that a lot of stuff is lost in translation. Number one, our standard of joy is, oh, yeah, you go to a champion and you keep winning, and that's joy. Or that's what is fulfilling career-wise. And I could see, I don't know, but I could see for him, like, okay, I did that. Now let me try doing something different. The intellectual pursuit of doing something different, which to the sports fans, like, what do you mean? You're just supposed to win 18 million in a row and then retire the greatest ever. And for him, it's like, yeah, got kind of boring. All the winning got boring, maybe, perhaps. Right?
He's still great. He wins last night against the Miami Heat. I would say Kevin Durant's game is going to age better than Jimmy Butler's game because he's always going to be able to get those jump shots and get all that scoring. The thing that I wanted to talk about from last night in basketball was what the Warriors did to the Celtics at Boston, and one thing in the middle of it that you don't see a lot of, which is Steph Curry makes the turnover. Steve Kerr rips him and then says after the game, quote, "The beauty of Steph is that I could yell at him." There aren't a lot of superstars taking that. Mm-hmm. Give me all the guys you have taking a lambasting right now from their coach because they're not running that league and their teams. Because all of a sudden, Anthony Edwards is taking a bunch of threes. Now everybody's taking a bunch of threes. These players clearly run the league. I mean, and over in Golden State, you've got a decorated champion who has nothing else to prove, who's taking a public yelling from his coach in front of everybody. When Steph Curry, I don't think he needs any of that. But the reason they're doing that is because Steph Curry is like, I want a coach to coach me the way that he coaches everybody. That's a good way to lead.
Steve Kerr experienced this on the other side as a player, playing for Greg Popovich and seeing how Pop coached Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. And it really started with Tim. And the conversation very early in Pop and Tim's career is, hey, I'm going to do this to you in front of everybody so that they all know if the best player is going to get talked to like this, then everybody else just has to fall in line. And, Greg Popovich, I think he said this in his Hall of Fame speech last year, but it was something along the lines of like, yeah, if it weren't for Tim, I wouldn't be able to be the coach that I am because that gives you license to basically do that. But it comes with permission. It's not because I'm just tougher than him. It's he's allowing it to happen. Right? And the same thing when Steve Kerr got to Golden State, he said Steph Curry reminds him of Tim Duncan in that regard. It's like he'll allow you to coach him hard if for no other reason than just to send the signal to everybody else. Look, anybody can get it, even the franchise player.
Well, it's a great contrast to Kevin Durant, which we were talking about earlier, because Steph Curry at every stage was beloved by everybody. Right? So if you have the one person who is going to say to him, hey, I'm going to be negative with you. I'm going to give you a hard time so that everybody thinks, oh, wow, I respect you. But in your heart of hearts, not only are you my number one, but everybody here loves you. Kevin Durant never had that, right? So if Steve Kerr would have gone off on him, it would have been like, why are you going off on me? Steph Curry doesn't play the same defense that I can. So it's just a matter of what he's able to withstand.
It's the permission. It comes down to the permission. Steve Kerr could not coach Kevin Durant in that way because I don't believe Kevin Durant granted him the permission to do so. To a lesser extent, Draymond Green grants that permission, but it's a weird kind of masochistic, like, I like it when people scream at me. This is how Coach Izzo coached me, so I want you to coach me like that. But, yeah, his ability to coach Steph in that way is absolutely, it's a two-way street. It's not just, I'm going to coach you this way. It's, hey, is it cool if I do this? Yeah, all right, shoot.
What is the heart of hearts? Is it a heart inside of a heart? Is it the beating heart of a heart?
How many hearts does Izzy have? Because it's your heart of hearts.
And in my heart of hearts,
I have a room full of hearts, and in the middle of that room is a heart.
And Josh Hart's in there for some reason.
And he's the heart.
So is Kevin Hart.
I think that it's a heart inside of a heart, right? It's the beating. If you're saying in your heart of hearts, what you're saying is that heart also has a heart, and that's the beating heart, right?
Mary Hart, rest in peace.
You guys can keep doing this, but I would like an answer to my question.
Bret Hart.
It's obnoxious, so it's probably some like Shakespeare thing or something.
It is Shakespeare.
Yeah, we're getting to it.
But okay, but do you guys, when you say it, if you say it, Izzy was the only one who said it, but when you say heart of hearts, what is it that you're imagining? Surely it's not Shakespeare. Surely that when you say that, you're not, holding.
Surely either.
You're not holding up a skull and staring at it and talking to it.
I'm kind of with Amin. I've got a room full of hearts for some reason, and I'm kind of just looking around, like, which heart am I going with today?
Aren't there animals with multiple hearts, and
That's
one of them
ridiculous,
does most
Izzy.
of the work? No?
I'll ask Ron.
I think a cow. Doesn't a cow have like 2 hearts?
Multiple stomachs
That's
for a cow.
stomachs, yeah.
And my stomach of stomachs.
Tony, that was excellent work in a very small window as Amin just asked something breathtakingly stupid.
It's the chud. The chud moves from one stomach to the other stomach and then back out.
And you know how they say the key to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Attaboy.
So a cow.
Are you of the belief that there is an animal in the animal kingdom that has multiple hearts?
Yes, Jimmy Butler.
Not last night. Not last night at the end of the game. Can you explain to me? Because there were a handful of things that happened last night that were fun and funny. The Warriors game against the Celtics was one of them. Ja Morant and LeBron going back and forth on who's too small for the other. I'm so tired of that as a celebration that people keep going lower
Just
and
keep
lower.
going all the way
love it.
down, Dan. Here you go. I'm on the floor right here.
Kevin Durant goes here with the 2 fingers. It's great.
They've got to stop going so low. LeBron went all the way to the floor and saying that Ja Morant is at your kneecap. He can't do anything with you in the post. We know this. This is one of the things that was interesting from last night, but there were multiple games that were interesting, and very quietly, Jokic goes 23, 20, and 16 and knocks off OKC. As Michael Porter says, and you guys tell me whether he's got this right. Michael Porter says this might be the last dance for the Nuggets. And I'm like, not if they keep the first 2 guys. It's not. It's only, like, you might think it's the last dance because they might get rid of you.
It might be your last dance.
It might be your last dance, but it's not everybody's last dance.
He's like the Horace Grant of the Bulls, right? It's your last dance. We'll move on to Dennis after
Not
this.
even. More like B.J. Armstrong.
Wow.
Like, he's the 5th. He's not the 4th. He's not Horace Grant. He's not the 4th on that team. He's the 5th, is he
Who's
not?
the 3rd?
Octopuses and
Aaron
squids,
Gordon?
by the way.
There it is.
Oh.
I knew there was an
Also
animal.
hagfish,
Don't like that name.
earthworms, roaches, cuttlefish, garden snails, multiple hearts.
There you go.
Not
Roaches have multiple hearts?
That's why they
Roaches?
can survive the apocalypse, Dan. Nuclear bomb hits one of them, bam, the other heart kicks in.
A lot of heart.
It says that their main heart is in their head.
Of the cockroach.
Yes.
Put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Did you know the cockroach had multiple hearts? Did you know that the main heart of the cockroach was in its head?
That makes me want to stomp them less. What? A little bit. Why? I don't know. There's a lot going on down there.
You know, stomping cockroaches is a messy affair.
It is.
It's
But
your-
it needs to be done.
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely.
Dominance needs to be
They
established.
can't. They don't get that message.
This is my house.
I
This is
told
not
you
your
guys
house.
the story. This happened to me recently. My wife loves when I'm a fool, and I do it daily. Yesterday, I did it twice. Twice I was a fool. I
Did you
used
say
one
his
of...
cow had multiple hearts? Is that what you
Not
said?
that bad,
Okay,
no.
all right.
Not quite that foolish, no. The 2 mistakes that I made yesterday is I took one of the most expensive towels and I put it in a place that was just picking up flood water. I didn't know it was one of the most expensive towels. It was a bad towel. I also tried to help her with something and locked us entirely out of the house. But the time with the cockroach that happened recently, I told you this, and it's physically funny. I wish that I had the video of this. She's scared of cockroaches, and so it's the only time I could be like truly heroic.
Yeah.
And so I come running in with a shoe, and I went to go bang it, but I missed, and then barrel roll.
No.
Because I came in, so I ended up like in a next to a hamper, like all sprawled out, and the roach just ran off because I
Did the roach give you a too small?
I totally missed it, but I just combat rolled, and I missed it by this much, and I would have killed it. Like, it would have been theatrically great, but I wish I had video of it because it was so stupid.
Quick question for the room. Funnier dance story that you wish were on video. That one or the one with him in the elevator with the beautiful woman and coming out with the drink, falling into the other elevator across the way with the drink splashing everywhere?
I've got a third one I wish I had video of.
The one where your dog died and you were in the car crying?
That's a good one, too. I could also give you the guy who asked me about our show while I was in the middle of a testicular ultrasound.
Great one.
But I think if I had video, some of the best I would have. Like, if I've only had one video in my life that I believe could win America's Funniest Home Videos or finish in the top 3.
Rookie.
I was, and believe it or not, this story is going to it's going to test whether or not people believe it, because I was washing my car, and it's been a long time since I've washed my own car. and I couldn't get the hose to work correctly, so I was sort of shaking it, and eventually I threw it down, and as I threw it down, it hits, and the water goes in my face, and so I'm moving away from the water in my face, but then as my head comes up, I just run straight into the light that is on our porch. And just go straight down, because I ran into a light. And the light didn't even move that was on the porch. It was one of these big, big lights. And so, if I had the video of that.
Can we check your ring cam history, please?
It was pre-ring cam.
I
was washing my own car. It was a long time ago.
I'm still thinking about your towel depth chart. So you have like some towels that are expensive towels. Like all my towels are on the same level. I don't really have a towel where like my wife's like, don't touch that towel. Like they're all
egalitarian.
They're all just towels.
I live on the beach, and so there are a lot of colorful towels that seem like they've been there for a while that I didn't know were the expensive towels. And so I thought that they were just towels that we don't use very often.
Every Hispanic family has the towels that are in the bathroom that you can't use, right? They're just there for show, pa bonito. So that I go in to wash my hands and then I sneak it and actually do it. So I sneak and dry my hands on those towels, even though my wife is like,
you got to air dry. You cannot touch those things.
Wait, no,
if
but
I touch them
if
and
I'm
they're
at
damp, I will go announce it to the homeowner and say somebody's been using your fancy towels.
Wait, this is what you're missing. I don't do it in the front. I go to the back of the towel.
I'm in the back
and
door.
Then I go like
Yes,
this to the
dude.
back of the towel, and then I keep it moving. That way, Izzy comes to my house, goes to touch the ceremonial towels. Bam.
I thought those
dry.
towels were there to dry the hands. Like, I know you don't use them to, like, they're not shower towels, but those towels are when you're done washing your hands. You just do the little...
Only in your fantasies can you dry your hands on those towels.
Oh, man, I'm learning a lot
like
today.
I like that Izzy is like the towel inspector. He comes to houses, and then he goes to the bathroom, and then he checks to see if the ceremonial towel has been used by anyone else. And it's very convenient, by the way, that you then announce that someone's been using these
It
towels.
wasn't me.
I don't have fancy towels, but I have a fancy fold to my towels, right? So if you go to my guest room and you see my towels hanging fancily, do not touch them because they will droop and they will fall down. And if you can't fix them, don't touch them.
I'm still on cockroaches, by the way. It's unclear if they actually do have multiple hearts. Google search is really giving me a tough time. They may only have one heart, but it's in multiple parts of their body.
It's not their head anymore?
I wish I could tell you.
All right, I've got a number of questions, not about the roach. Please keep researching that. Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Do you have a ceremonial towel? You guys are saying, because I want to know what all the rules are here, because we learn things all the time when we start rummaging around in people's different bathroom habits. We learn cultural things. We learn a number of different things. There are cultures that don't use the washcloth.
I hate that.
There's some failed basic hygiene learning there in not using the washcloth. We have learned about sitting and standing wipers. There are different all over the world, and some of them are learning right now that there is another kind right now. But I don't know what correct towel behavior is. And what Tony is saying there, while always a grift with Tony, somehow, if I touch a towel in somebody's house and I'm a guest and it's damp, that's not a good situation. That there's going to be some disgust because I don't know where that towel's been. I don't know where that dampness comes from. I don't know who used that towel for said dampness. And so I want to know what the rules are now of towels, because what Tony just described there, I did not think that the ceremonial towel was ever to be touched by anybody. And I believe your wife would be offended if she learned right now that after playing basketball or wherever your hands have been, wherever it is your hands have been, that they're clean on the back of towels that she doesn't want touched.
I think there's a misnomer going on around here, a misunderstanding.
It isn't a misnomer.
Yes, it's a misunderstanding. I misunderstood what the meaning of misnomer was. There's a misunderstanding in that you got Tony like, I've got dirty hands, let me wipe them off on a towel. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is you went to the bathroom, you washed your hands, soap, water, everything, clean, 20 seconds, did the happy birthday song, everything, right? Remember that? Shout out to COVID.
You're supposed to do it twice.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm good with once.
Maybe I did spread that.
I sing slow.
Shout out to COVID.
Yeah, I mean, remember that was the whole thing.
No, I do remember.
I still
but
do it,
just
by the way.
Shout out to COVID.
And I do extra soap underneath my fingernails.
I do you do this. You do this
Yeah.
right here where you scratch your fingernails against your palm, and then the other one right there. Oh, man.
We did a segment where we asked somebody for 12 minutes how to correctly wash their hands. That was something that we did.
Still couldn't get it right after that.
And now we're figuring out how to dry them.
There you go. We've moved on. It only took 4 years. So now your hands are clean and wet. I need to dry them off somewhere. There are these towels that are hand towel size, right?
There's actually 3. It's a tier system. It's the bath towel that's the big one.
Right.
Then it's like a face towel that's a medium one. And then there's the hand towel that sits
You're
on top
talking about
of all
the
3.
decorative towels that are like, some of them are like 50% embroidery or like 50%
Ceremonial
some
towels.
sort of
Correct.
decorative
What
thing
houses
that
are you
doesn't
guys
even
going into?
dry.
Yeah, mine doesn't have like embroidery or lace on it. It's just a regular towel, but it's the towel that my wife says I cannot use, which makes me want to
Does
use
it look
them
like
more.
the other towels?
Yeah,
Then
it's
the same
exactly the
set?
same.
You should
But
be
you're
able
not allowed to use that one?
Kind of.
Look,
What
it's
ma-
a simple set of rules here.
This
all
is
right?
like Animal Farm. Hold on. What made that towel so
I didn't
special?
think
That's what I'm trying to
embroidered
say.
towels were used. I thought those were decorative.
They
That's
might
what
not
I thought
even
we were
dry.
talking about the whole time.
What towel are you guys using when you brush your teeth in the bathroom to like wipe
I
your
use
face
my
off?
toothbrush
toothbrush for
usually.
that.
The
no,
hand towel.
I'm saying like after.
Okay.
Chris puts toothpaste
I'm not
on a
allo-
towel and
No,
scrubs
I'm
his-
saying to dry off your face after you've brushed your teeth. I'm not allowed to use
It's a
these
good
towels
question.
apparently.
I used the same towel that I just hung on the door
Exactly.
when I took a shower.
Dano.
yes.
No. Simple set of rules, okay? You've got the decorative ones that are on the towel rack, okay? You look at those, they look really nice. Maybe they're folded kind of fancily. Don't touch those, okay? If you happen to be at somebody's house where you see a towel either hanging on a hook or on the shower, right? That's been reused. That's potentially going to be reused for a shower,
It
okay?
might have ass on it.
Exactly. You
That's
have
always
to
a
have-
danger.
I don't. Yeah.
It's not
You
an
have
ass
to
towel.
have
The
a
ass
hand
towel is
towel.
totally different. The ass towel's on the
That's
left.
That's
I'm
called the
always
towelette.
wary of the ass towel. That's what I'm scared of
what I-
everywhere. Where's the ass
You
towel?
find it in the bathroom. That's the
You
ass
know what's
towel.
not the
touching
ass
that
towel
one.
is the hand towel that's
Embroidered one.
directly next to the sink. If the homeowner or home renter is not offering you a hand towel next to the sink, you're in the Wild West, man. You don't know what to do. You could get ass to the face. You could get reprimanded by doing all this fancy towel. You have to have a hand towel on the side of the sink.
You guys are doing this all wrong. Look, the only one that doesn't have ass on it is the smaller ones, right? The big ones, a big bath towel, anything goes there.
Which smaller ones? Because I think Tony mistook the real small ones for washcloths. The
The
washcloths are
embroidered one
absolutely ass
can't
towels.
be used for anything.
Yes, you can, because you know it hasn't touched anybody's ass.
It can't be used for anything other than decoration. The embroidered towel is not to be used for anything.
I need to dry my hands.
Let me add something else, which I've learned, trial and error. Do not put hand soap and hand lotion in the guest bathroom, because people will inevitably use the hand
Every
lotion as
time.
soap and then complain and think that they didn't because they didn't read it
This
properly.
conversation is not helping. I'm more confused about towels than I was before we started.
All
this
right, let's start
conversation.
again.
Okay.
The embroidered towel
Safest
at
one.
Le Batard Show. The embroidered towel. Do you use it to wash your hands? Yes or no?
No,
because-
use it to dry your hands.
To dry your hands. Thank you. Do you use it around anything that has wet hands? Because I don't think the embroidered towel is anything other than something that's hanging from a loop. It's hanging from a loop, and it's just put there on the wall the same way you'd put a mirror on the wall.
You know what that's-
It's there to bring accents in the bathroom together, the feng shui of the bathroom. That's what it's there. It is not there to be used by your mouth, by your hands, and certainly not by your ass. What kind of savage would you be to use the embroidered towel for your ass?
Drying
That would
your
be like
hands.
it'd be like rough too.
Oh, that would hurt. Drying your hands with that towel would be the equivalent of walking into the person's house and cleaning your feet on the area rug in the living room
No.
instead of the mat.
No, it's not the equivalent of that. I'll tell you why. Because you've washed your hands. My hands are
That
clean.
is true. He keeps
You're
bringing
missing
this
the
up.
washing.
The hands are clean at this point, guys.
I'm
It
gonna
is a
come to all
point.
your houses and rub my ass on your towels. This conversation
Don't
is
threaten
ridiculous.
me. Don't
I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna leave right now. I'm gonna do it right now.
What kind of, it's escalated
I'm leaving.
to threat very quickly. Leave my embroidered towels alone.
Start scooting out
I
there.
don't understand why it is she's
She's walking
threatening
out.
me.
I don't know.
We didn't get any clarification, by the way. The
She knows
expensive
where I live,
towels-
actually.
The expensive towels that you used that against your wife's wishes, right?
Yes.
Are they ceremonial towels, or are they just, oh, this is for special occasions?
Well, this is what happened, okay? Because of all of the strange rain stuff happening, I never know when an area is going to get flooded on the one of the balconies of the home. And so I'm trying to put some towels there in the door to make sure that I don't get flooding. And those towels, I just go to the bottom of a closet that I thought had the bad fabric towels, the bad color towels, the cheap towels, the old towels. And as I do that, it is explained to me that I have chosen the worst possible towel in the house to do that with, that it's the most expensive of the towels. It's got some brand name that starts with an M that I don't know about.
So to Amin's point, what are you using that towel for with its intended purpose of being expensive?
I was never using it for anything, but it is a beach towel. It is something I have not seen used, but the colorful towels are the beach towels, correct? Like the towels that have multiple colors on them are the beach towels.
Normally, and they're normally a little bigger.
The size is
the size is what tells. Yeah, I see. I've got. This is very fascinating to me because now I feel like we've entered a subculture of the towels, and within the towel community, everyone has different like levels of hierarchy, almost like a caste system. And you're saying these towels that you use, these are like aristocrats, right? They walk around. We are only used for beach day.
Many people listening to this hear me say embroidered towels and are saying, "What the bleep are you talking about? I don't have any embroidered."
They all
towels."
say Dan Le Batard on them.
You guys remember The Prince and the Pauper, where it's like a prince and it's like twins with a homeless kid, or excuse me, an unhoused gentleman of a kid,
separated at birth,
and then they switch places, right? And the unhoused one becomes the prince, and the prince one has to live like amongst the people, right?
Pauper.
It's kind of it's like a pauper. It's kind of like Trading Places. You did the Trading Places Prince and the Pauper with the towels. This towel is supposed to be fed candies and grapes and stuff like that, and instead you said, "Get to work down in the salt mines." And the towel's like, "But I don't do that, sir."
It was an elitist towel for sure. It doesn't do migrant labor.
I found an expensive Missoni towel, which I think maybe you have, and if I spent this much money on a towel, I would never use it. I'd frame it, and I'd just like stare at it.
I prefer my Magna box.
You guys are showing me some things here that I was not aware of. I had not given towels a lot of thought. I thought there was a spot between whatever is your shower towel and your beach towel for a luxury larger towel that is somewhere a size in between whatever it is the normal size towel in the bathroom and the beach towel.
No,
I
there's
thought there was
different
another
size bath
luxury
towels.
towel.
There are luxurious bath towels that are ginormous, and they're too fluffy for me. Too fluffy. They don't get enough
I'm a
water
hard towel
off.
guy.
Can't be too
Yeah.
fluffy.
Yeah, hard towel guy. But Dan, you're a big guy. I'm a big guy. Sometimes what I like to do, sometimes my wife knows, sometimes she doesn't. I take the bath towels that are smaller and then I switch them with the beach towels that have that rougher feel because I like a rough towel, not a soft towel.
Little
and then I
exfoliation.
use the beach towel, which is like huge. It's like 7 feet by like 4 feet, and I use that instead of the beach towel.
I don't like soft towels. Soft towels, if I'm wet, I'm all of a sudden it's like putting cotton swabs.
It's like
all
a
over
rug.
me
I'm
when
washing
wet.
I'm drying myself with a rug.
You're
and I'm
still
like, what am I
wet
doing?
after drying off.
You're moving the water around. That's all you're doing. It's not removing the water. It's just, hey, you want this water in your elbow?
Who likes soft towels?
Give me that rough towel.
There are people who like soft towels. We should do polls.
All right, at Le Batard Show, soft towel or hard towel.
Valerie
Jess,
says hi, by the way.
Jess has returned from putting her ass on all our embroidered towels. The embroidery that I speak of, the thing that's funny about this to me is I'm envisioning, like my grandparents had no money. They came from no money. But the first time I discovered with awe and wonder as a child, going into a tiny little home right near where the Orange Bowl was, the idea of a towel as decoration was the embroidered towel that had been brought from Cuba that was on the wall and was not to be used in any way. Wasn't even a towel that had any practical usage. It was like a napkin, the towel was. But my grandmother then thought that the height of luxury was 1 year getting me as a gift monogram towels, the height of luxury, DLB. And so you can imagine how my friends made fun of me. Look, guys, if Dan passes out in the shower, he'll wake up and know what his initials are. Like just the amount of mockery that came with my grandmother buying me what she thought was, a wonderful thing to buy me. But the embroidered monogram towels are the height of jackassery, correct? Like, no.
What?
No.
Don't say that about your grandma.
What's
man.
the point of those? Like, do you live by yourself, right? You weren't married at the time, so it's just like there's no other body's towels here. Why do I need to know that they're mine?
When I went to FAU, I was gifted as like going off to college. Here's some towels with your initials on them.
Nice. Oh,
No way. CWC.
For college, that makes more sense, right? If you're living in the dorms, maybe it gets mixed up. But if you're living by yourself,
I want to go back to Nana's embroidered towels.
Abuela.
Abuela's pardon me, abuela's
Hey,
embroidered.
Don't think you know my grandma.
Don't take my culture with Nana. Like, don't know.
I have a Nana.
Abuela, that's right. The Codys have a Nana. The Le Batards have an Abuela. Thank you.
Wild Ruth.
I will not be homogenized by you making everyone a Nana. She's an Abuela.
The towel came from the old country. Was the towel pre-revolution?
Well, no, the towel was bought from. Look, Cuba doesn't have monogram towels.
I'm just saying, pre-revolution.
The
it was
Some
a different
people
Cuba.
did. Coulda.
It was a
outta
different
here,
Cuba.
man. The children in Cuba are using condoms as balloons, like because they don't have balloons. in Cuba.
Pre-revolution, Dan. That's all we're
They
saying.
don't have monogram towels in Cuba. I want put this on the poll at Le Batard Show. If you have monogram towels, are you a jackass? Yes or no? And also, you guys have seen on the cufflinks, some people put on dress shirts, they put the cufflinks, they put their initials or their name on the cufflinks. How are we feeling about that
I got
one?
a pair of those.
Let me tell you
Just
right
one.
now. 2005 was a crazy time in my life. The cufflink era, I hope we never go back. That when it was like, hey, we're going out tonight, right? To a club or to a bar. Hold on, let me put on my fanciest button-up shirt and a suit jacket with jeans and like these weird Stacey Adams shoes. And then
Hold on.
the cufflinks.
No,
I mean,
he's right. He's
some
right.
of us were not going out to clubs in 2005. Can you guys sort of elaborate on this timeline?
So, once upon a time, the accepted dress code for dudes in this country was a massive white T-shirt and a throwback jersey of some sorts. Maybe a headband, maybe a wristband, depending on how you want to do it, right? And then Jay-Z says, I don't wear jerseys, I'm 30 plus, give me a fresh pair of jeans and a button up. And instantly, throwback jerseys were dead, T-shirts were dead, and we all decided we got to dress like Jay-Z.
Business casual.
Business casual. So you wore jeans, and they were still baggy. They were still very baggy, but then you'd wear an oversized button-up shirt because nothing can be fitted, right? You wore like a blazer or a suit jacket. Didn't matter if it fit.
What a time.
But if you were really next level, that button-up shirt had cufflinks. You had to have the cufflinks out there, and then you had to tug on the cuffs to make sure they showed so that the suit jacket didn't cover them up, because then, well, what's the point? And then you would just like, when you go up to the bar, you slide up to the bar, you do this. You lean on it so everyone sees it gleaming and stuff. That was how we did it.
Can I tell my favorite cufflink story?
Yeah.
One
Sure.
time I was on the set of the Sports Reporters. I mean, it's fair.
Yeah, we'll all do ours after.
All right, great. Set of the Sports Reporters, Dan's favorite show, and our great friend John Saunders, rest in power. I was doing a show, was getting ready, and realized I did not have cufflinks, but I had a shirt that required cufflinks. And I was just like, well, it's a Sports Reporters. I'm going to be classy. I'm not going to roll up my sleeves, and you can see my forearms there. And so John Saunders is like, yeah, I think I've got a pair. And he goes and he finds some for me. And 15 minutes later, comes out with a pair, kind of giggling, tells me this completely unironically, because this was about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after I came out. Gives me the pair of cufflinks on them, New York license plate, Ass Man.
Cosmo Kramer.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York.
I've got a lot of basketball stuff that I want to get to with Izzy and Amin, but I don't want to leave a lot of meat on the bone from the last segment, because Jessica told us, and again, some of the best show happening when we're not on the air, where Jessica's saying, yes, you got to go dry the hands off on the pants. The side of the pants is the way to go. And Izzy's saying, just air dry them. Just air dry your hands entirely, where you're spilling droplets all over
But it's clean droplets.
the mirror. I don't know the right way to go on all of this. That's what I thought the hand towels, not embroidered, the smaller towels were for on the hands.
Izzy, if you're out here shaking your hands like a Polaroid picture, better grab some paper towels and some Windex, because I don't want all those water stains all over my mirror.
Provide a hand towel, sir.
I did. It's decorative.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Better way to dry your hands, air dry, shaking, or side of the pants. I think I'm going to surprise you guys with a choice that I was making initially in sports writing, a fashion choice that was a terrible one, and I don't think Izzy remembers this. He might be too young to remember this. But early days of sports writing, I was not only wearing suspenders.
No.
I was wearing a pocket watch.
No!
That had the chain going from the belt loop to the pocket.
Dan
Yeah.
Le Batard
What
is my
era
older
was
brother.
this?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Monopoly.
No. Settle down, back row. Let me tell you guys this, because my older brother was of this era. Did you also have a vest?
I did not have a vest. I wasn't working the rest. I was trying to figure stuff out in the 1920s. I was dating various flappers.
You're lucky. It looks like the internet does not have any evidence of this.
It was a dangerous time, man. I remember watching my brother, and I'm like, "Are you doing this for real?" And he's like, "Yeah." You know, he just like. I was like, yeah, this is the thing. But I could tell he wasn't sold on it. Dan, were you sold on it?
I was scared. I was trying to be different, and it was outside of my personality.
Now I'm picturing Dan in some of the actual outfits that were of like my era, like the overalls with the one strap on, one strap off. Like you had to rock that, Dan.
No, just suspenders. Call my mother, Chris, and see if she has anywhere any of this. The pocket watch was the greater offense. Both of them.
And you kept it in the pocket, and then you occasionally pulled it out to check the time, or you hung it out of the pocket so people knew you had it.
That was, but you're going to make fun of this. This was a gift from my late grandfather, though, so it had
Eddie Murphy style.
Abuelo, thank you, Papa, as you would say it if you were culturally appropriating it. Yes, but it was a watch that broke open, and you just read the time. It was a circular piece.
Did it play a nice song or anything? Did it have like a tick 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 sound when you opened it?
No, it was not a song.
It definitely ticked. Come on.
Did you also wear a wristwatch and have the pocket watch too, or was it just the pocket watch?
Did you occasionally hypnotize people with it?
Do you think that there's a matching accessory of a wristwatch? I think if you go pocket watch, it's a redundancy to have any other kind of watch.
Tony just asked, did you also wear a belt with your suspenders?
No. No, the
sure.
suspenders were they were acting. You thought it was just a fashion choice. No, they were serving the practical purpose of holding up my pants. Yes.
The suspenders holding on for dear life.
Why you gotta do that?
Put it on the poll, Juju. Were Dan's suspenders holding on for dear life? Because they were. I wasn't buying the right size.
No.
I had weight fluctuations.
Was it digging into your shoulders?
I mean, it was tight. It was like doing resistance bands. They were tight. No, they were tight. They were tight. I was using them at the maximum, like the allowed limits. I didn't know, they came in different sizes.
Not a lot of this move going on, huh? Where you're like stretching them out.
No, it was chafing my nipples. Actually.
All in the name of fashion.
The things we do.
Yeah, we have high heels, chafe nipples. You do what you got to do to look good.
Would you dry your hands on the suspenders then? Is that why you brought it up?
I just couldn't believe that that's Jessica's move when you're faced with a guest bathroom
with no towel. You do a little quick pat dry on the hips. You pat the hips and then you walk out. Sometimes there's not a towel. Airport, sometimes no towel.
I walk out like I'm a surgeon with my hands up like this.
Yes.
Searching for the first napkin or something to dry my hands.
You know what? The most overhyped way of drying hands is those stupid little air dryer. Like your hands are not dry after those things.
They're so gross.
It
I hate
sprays
that.
back into your face. Like the water goes everywhere and you're not dry. It's cool invention, but one of the dumbest inventions I've ever seen.
Thank you, Tony, for saying that in my ear because you guys know where the air is coming from, right? The
No,
air is coming
people's
from
ass.
Farts. Now you've got someone like a bunch of
It's
people farting into a
particles.
box, and it's like, all right, we're gonna
No.
keep this air and we're gonna put it out.
So you're in the bathroom. People are taking dumps. When they dump, because there's no lid to close it, they flush. Particles are going up in the air.
This is ridiculous.
It's saturated with poop particles.
It's not ridiculous.
It's
Roy told you this the other day. I didn't even realize it until Roy said it. You have to shut the lid to the toilet when you flush the toilet.
No, that part's true. I'm saying a means part here where that is the same air coming out at you when you're drying
Where
your
do
hands.
you think they've got like an air farm somewhere else that they're blowing the air from? They're just grabbing the air in the room and blowing it faster. That's all they're doing. It's like turning on a ceiling fan. It's not generating new air. It's just moving the air that's in here around.
So in that theory,
I don't
aren't
think
we
you
all...
know that.
I know that.
You're just like...
No, I mean, I think he's partially right. I mean, there's one of the main things that stuck with me after COVID was the toilet plume. There was research done on the plume of particles that come out of the toilet after you flush in public, and that shit scarred me. And I think Amin's right. I think it ends up in the air. I think it's getting sucked into the Dyson thing and sucked back out right in your face.
Science.
I have a number of things here from basketball that I wish to talk about because we have the Joker and Izzy and Amin here. Let's just tackle first, please, the end of the Heat game last night. The Heat are now 3-4. They've lost 3 bad home games to 3 playoff teams, but middling playoff teams. They haven't actually played any of the good teams yet until last night, and then they lose at the end and can't get a shot off at the end, and Jimmy declines to go for 2 when they're giving it to him and then doesn't know what to do at the end of the game, and it's botched as poorly as it can be botched at the end of that game. So thoughts on where the Heat are 7 games into a season where they've played Orlando and they've played the Knicks and they've played Sacramento, and those teams are fine, but I don't think any of us think of those 3 teams as champions. And 3-4 when you've lost your home games against teams that are just okay and lost all of your home games, not a great start to this trip on the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, this one was in Phoenix, and at the end there with Jimmy Butler, he needed a 3, so you're not supposed to take a 2 there. Didn't have any timeouts left. Their last couple losses have been frustrating against the Kings after having a lead in the second half, and in this one after playing a pretty decent third quarter after just being terrible throughout the third quarters coming in. They are figuring things out. Like you saw even last night, they played both rookies, Pelle Larsson and Kel'el Ware, and they both had a couple of moments, but it's clearly not the rotation Spo is looking for. It's clearly not, if you look at the sort of styles they played from game 1 to now, they're still making adjustments there. I think in an odd way, it's encouraging for this group to be close with these teams. I mean, look at Phoenix. I think they have 1 loss so far. So I don't think necessarily it's anything wrong with the group. I just think it's one of those things where if you just stare at Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and look at their performances, you don't think, hey, those 2 are going to carry me to a championship.
Heat's last 3 losses, up 13 in the third quarter versus the Knicks, up 15 in the third quarter versus Sacramento, up 15 in the third quarter versus Phoenix.
Those leads don't mean anything in today's NBA. Those are totally irrelevant leads at this point in the NBA.
They mean something specific to the Heat, and it's something I've been talking about the whole time, which is this team is offensively starved. What they're able to do offensively is nothing short of a miracle, of excellent execution, of great coaching. But at the end of the day, there is a stint in every single Heat game where it's like, can't score anymore. Because all the pretty offense can't get you a bucket when you really need it. And that's why I keep saying they need somebody in there who's just a walking bucket.
I thought that was Terry Rozier. I thought that's what that was.
Well, that's the part that's interesting is the starting lineup has been pretty horrendous together.
Well, that's what's happening in the third quarters.
Yeah, and that's why last night, actually, they took the lead in the third quarter. That was the difference between last night's game and the other 2 games when you look at those leads, is the leads in the previous 2 were big leads that they had at the half and then proceeded to blow early in the third quarter and get blown out in the third. Last night, they made the adjustment, actually, of taking Niko Jovic out of that lineup, starting Haywood Highsmith, and they played great to start the second half. They played really good defense. It led to offense, all the things that they talk about. To me, the interesting question for Spo moving forward is what do you do not only to sort of solve some of the offensive woes of that group, but also what do you do to inject some offense off the bench? Because primarily right now, the main lineup where it's, hey, 1 starter with a whole bunch of guys off the bench has been Jimmy Butler plus a whole bunch of guys off the bench. I wonder if the difference may be, does Terry Rozier potentially come out of that starting lineup and become the guy of, hey, go be a looter and a riot against the other team's bench. Go get yours then, because right now, as the 4th option, they're essentially, we talk about there's only 1 ball to go around with some of these superstar teams that have 3 superstars offensively. This right now is a team where the starting lineup, it's only 1 ball to go around with 4 above average offensive players, and they're just trying to figure out the best shot every possession.
They should be more than 1 ball.
But to Amin's point here, when you're talking about sort of an overwhelming offensive presence, the Heat don't have one, right? So far, it feels like Tyler Hero has to be the guy. If he's good through the first 3 quarters, hey, that's got to be the guy late in the fourth. And nobody's going to feel good about that. Nobody's going to feel great about that in a close game. The idea with this team is, hey, we've got so much variety on offense. It could be anybody at any given time. We could get hot for a game, and boom, we're up by 20 in the fourth quarter. We don't have to worry about that. But when it comes to that, Jimmy Butler does not look overwhelming offensively. Bam Adebayo does not. Tyler Hero does not. And certainly Terry Rozier does not yet.
What's interesting about what you say there, Izzy, is Tyler has been as good to start this season as any season in his career. He's been efficient. He's shooting 45% from three. He's been making all of the right reads offensively. And what has been interesting is here at the end of these last couple of games, in those final possessions where you need a bucket, or where in the final couple of minutes you need someone to initiate your offense, the ball has not been in his hands. It's been in Jimmy Butler's hands.
We know what the ceiling is on all of these players, okay? Bam has not been good early this season, so you can tell me all you want about Tyler Hero, but if Bam's going to give me one game in the first 7 where he looks like anything that he's been his career averages, he's giving you one game. Tyler Hero's not going to compensate for that. So let me ask you about what is happening with the Miami Heat when I tell you, because they can sit here and say all they want, figuring it out. They've lost to all the playoff teams they've played, and they haven't beaten anybody good since early last year. Like they don't have a victory where you're like, oh, I see what this team could be. It's all precipitous decline. It's all precipitous decline for a season and a half since Duncan Robinson got hurt. Like the offense looked good for a brief stretch, and then it's been difficult offense since then. What are people still telling me about their 4 elite offensive players? This team has been offensively constipated for more than a full regular season of sample size.
We're going on. This is going to be the 3rd season of it, I believe, right? So the season they lost in Game 7 to the Celtics when Jimmy Butler missed the 3 at the end. That was the last time this offense was like an elite offense.
Strus and Vincent and whatever that team was shooting from 3, was that the team that was the best offensive efficiency team that they had when they had Strus and Vincent shooting the 3?
That was Lowry and Tucker, really. It was those guys coming off the bench in spurts, but that was the one really good Kyle Lowry season here in Miami, and PJ Tucker being at sort of the height of his powers, being opened up as a corner three-point shooter who was shooting about 50% from that corner.
We need some fiber on this team. Is there any fiber available in the trade market?
Because we're constipated?
Yeah, we're constipated. We need some
Wipe your
fiber
ass on a
this.
fancy towel after.
We need some prunes, some apple juice.
Apple juice.
I used to, apple juice walks right through me.
It walks right through you?
It's like if I'm ever, in need, it's one of my go-tos.
I don't think of apple juice as being in the category of prunes. Isn't prunes isn't prunes the ultimate, even more than fiber, the ultimate diuretic?
Dan, there's something about prunes. I don't know what it is. Obviously, I'm in the pregnant wife situation right now, and things are moving a little bit slower than usual. And then I told her, hey, why don't we use prune juice? She's like, no, I don't know. I don't think it's going to work. We use prune juice. Dude, next day, bam.
Diuretics make you pee, and careful, Chris, because this is a slippery slope leading to a photo of poop.
Coffee?
Not a big coffee drinker. I know that is a lot of people's go-to.
I don't know. I don't drink coffee. So
all right. So what are the main diuretics? Because you guys went fiber very early there. I think of other things. I think of prune juice, and I thought coffee. Oh, wait a minute. Now you're going medicines. Yes. Well, but,
that kind of thing.
I mean, a medicine.
Metamucil.
Yes, thank you. Yes, any number of things.
As you can see, I've researched a lot for this.
Lubricate the tubes.
I've got another one for you. Midnight milkshakes.
That's a terrible idea. Like that's just you sleep
but it
poorly.
Works.
It doesn't work.
I missed a day of work or was I late?
I believe coconut is a natural laxative. Is it not?
Coconut?
I think it's like cream to coconut, right? Like pina coladas, apparently.
I see oatmeal here.
Amin did miss a day of work because he had a milkshake at midnight. These are difficult problems. This is how Meadowlark Media does it around here. He just missed the next day because he had a milkshake at midnight, and he's here to tout the restorative effects of the milkshake at midnight. It'll help you go to the bathroom, and then you go to the bathroom so much that you won't show up for work the next day.
Okay, hey, do you want a solution or do you want another problem?
Maybe just a late night text from Dan Le Batard.
That makes you...
It'll get the heat going.
From last night's basketball games, you enjoyed what the most? Because it brought me a blessed serenity to see somebody beat the Celtics. It seems like it's been a while.
Oh, Dan, it's not that they just beat them. They kind of humbled them. It looked like, yesterday on Oddball to preview the game, we did this little exercise where we're whispering advice into people's ears, right? And so I whispered to Steph Curry's image. I said, this is what you got to do. You got to go out there and you have to remind these people, I own you. You are all my children. And lo and behold, he did it, and he didn't do it in the usual Steph Curry way of, an amazing shooting display. He did it moving the ball. He was so good passing. They were operating. I was very optimistic on what Golden State was going to be going into this year because I thought, look.
Well, you never stopped believing in them last year.
No.
You always expected championship pedigree to do something in the playoffs and become what they've become through 8 games this season.
There's a difference between I'm not counting them out, which is kind of like, look, man, I've seen these guys do crazy things, and what they were going into this year, what they did in this offseason. I was incredibly optimistic. I said, look, man, yes, Golden State has been a dynasty on Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant and Draymond Green and those guys. But there's another part of this where it's like their role players, their supporting cast was always top notch. It's always these high IQ guys that were really good players in another life, but they came here to be high IQ role players. Iguodala, Sean Livingston, Leandro Barbosa, Andrew Bogut, David West. Like all of these dudes were just super tough, super smart, knew how to play. And I thought that was so underrated about what they did. Is that people thought, it's just Durant and Curry and just give them any 3 guys, whatever. Like, no. It's not just any 3 guys. When they won the championship, they had a little bit of that with Bielitsa, with Peyton, with Otto Porter, guys that knew how to play, right? And then they said, no, we're going to go with the young guys. That's what happened the last couple of years. This year, they went back and they got some guys who know how to play. Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, who last night, all of a sudden, now he's a 3-point shooter. What the hell? He had 3 threes in a row at one point. So when you bring that kind of supporting cast to the table, now you see, Steph doesn't have to be Superman. He can just get in where he fit in.
I mean, Steve Kerr played 11 guys in the first quarter, I believe, and that's without being fully healthy. Brandon Pajemski wasn't there. Mm-hmm. Was that a troll job because Jason Tatum was the 11th man on the USA team and he could have played every single game?
Is that a troll? Is that an overt troll, or is that just an Izzy theory? I want a new segment, Izzy's conspiracy theories, or do you know this to be so? Are you volunteering this? You've blown Amin's mind. Amin was watching. Do you know how rare it is for the arrogance of Amin to be like, I was watching that game and I didn't notice something that other people noticed.
Never did that math.
Is obviously Boston not at full strength, no Jaylen Brown, no Porzingis. Do you see this as kind of like Golden State almost evolving into a different offense?
It's not different because it's the same offense. It's just there are new options available because the offense itself when they run action, there's like 5 different things that could happen out of any of it, and that's what makes it hard to guard. It's the example I always give is like the Draymond split cut where Klay screens for Steph, and how do you guard that? Because normally, stick with the shooter. Wait a second, they're both shooters. So by the time you figured out, okay, this is what I do. You top block on this side. You come on the underside. Big man, you come up and show and help in any which way. What ends up happening is Draymond Green realizes, I have the ball and nobody's guarding me, and he just turns around and lays it up. And that's the to me, in a nutshell, that's the Warriors offense. It's like you're going to be so confused, spinning your head, trying to stop every single opportunity that the most obvious thing, guard the ball, is going to elude you. When you look at all these players and their ability to score and move without the ball and screen and do all those things, that's kind of what the essence comes down to, is that, Steph doesn't have to be the focal point in terms of taking this shot. There's going to be so much attention that everyone else is going to be as open as they've ever been in their life.
In terms of projects we got going on around here, Amin Elhassan and Charlotte Wilder are doing a wonderful job covering all of your basketball needs, no matter how eccentric they might be. Oddball every day of the week except one. You can guess which one it's not. Jessica has been doing great stuff with Lucy on GenCFB. You will hear some of that later in the show. And Billy and Stugotz have taken off for Arizona. They are in Arizona. They have landed. They are ready to get God Bless Football percolating and echoing. Amin is as far away from them geographically as you can be while having a home in Arizona.
Crisscross.
So if you want to spend time with Stugotz and Billy, let's give people the information here on what it is that they could do Sunday. Kickoff is at 2:25 local time. That's confusing to me. I don't know what to do with that. I see a local time 2:25. I'm like, no football game has ever started. You got me used to London. I mean, but 2:25 is not a starting time for a football game that I know of, but evidently it is.
It's 1 to 6 what they're doing. That's the most important thing.
I know, but it says kickoff 2:25.
It's an odd detail.
This is what I always say. I don't think we need to tell people what time kickoff is. They're football fans. They know.
Understood, but I've never seen 2:25 as a time. I've seen 4:25, and I understand what's happening there. 4:25, 4:27 is a time, but it's a
2:25 isn't a time for anything. You go into a restaurant at 2:25 and it's empty. I don't know what 2:25 is.
And let's remind people, Sunday service is presented by Smirnoff. You can join them, like Dan said, at the DraftKings Sportsbook and TPC Scottsdale. Jets Cardinals kickoff once again at 2:25. Streaming live on DLS YouTube. You must be 21 or older to go.
Man, you really petered out there. Izzy,
I'm
put
going
it
to play
on the
that back
poll
later. I
at
think that was fine.
LeBatard Show.
I get a bad rap
We
around
were all
here.
just staring at you, and you were leaking confidence.
That's not
It was
leaking confidence. That's like I'm delivering that like at 21 or older. Like that's not petering out. That's
really?
like
That was you.
That's craftsmanship.
You think you were nailing the
That's
diss
what I'm
out there.
saying.
You
I
think
really
you were Simone Biles
streaming
there.
live on DLS YouTube and you must be 21 or older.
You thought
that is
I
not
think we should
petering
play
out.
it back in the next segment, and
We
we
will.
should all vote on it.
All right, we will listen to it. Put it on the poll, though, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Is 2:25 p.m. time for anything? Because I think we
Time
really,
for bed.
I think we found a hole in the universe. Nobody does anything at 2:25 on any day. There's no appointed thing at 2:25 in the history of time, except for NFL football in Arizona. That's all we've got. Speaking of football, Jess, I've been remiss here. I have gotten to Thursday without talking seriously about college football this week. There were a few distractions this week that prevented us from talking about anything involving the rankings. I don't know how you feel about anything. What kind of expertise can you give us on who's outraged and who's not? Because I missed it with everything else that was happening Tuesday night.
I think generally the consensus is that it's only the first ranking, so don't get too outraged yet. Lucy and I will break down some of the Indiana, Penn State, BYU reactions on GenCFB, which will be a little bit later in the show. But I think that was sort of it. It was like the undefeated teams that, Indiana and BYU, namely, not being ranked a little bit higher, they were unhappy. But both of those teams, I think, will get a chance to move up the rankings as teams ahead of them have to lose because they'll be playing other ranked teams, or as the season goes on and Indiana has to play Ohio State next week. So
the
I think it might
assessment
work itself
on
out.
these teams with the schedule that they've played help me, because this is just it's a cursory analysis by me that Pittsburgh was a fraudier unbeaten than Indiana is as an unbeaten, that Indiana is something closer to Miami as an unbeaten, where there are questions and there are doubts, but people are ready to understand that this BYU, even more so because there aren't questions about their schedule the way that there is about Indiana and Miami.
Well, yeah. So BYU has ranked wins over SMU and Kansas State versus Indiana, who doesn't have one of those wins yet, but they've been winning all their games by mostly double digits. So I think that it's an interesting question of if the committee values the close wins over ranked teams more so than blowing out a lot of teams on your schedule. I think Pitt did have a harder strength of schedule than Indiana, but Pitt also lost last weekend to SMU, so it's almost and they still have to play Clemson, which Clemson lost to Louisville, so I don't know.
But I'm talking about fraudy unbeatens. I'm talking about national perception on fraudy unbeatens, because Miami's got the top 5 ranking, but if I'm Indiana or BYU, I can make the argument that my schedule is at least that strong.
BYU can.
Indiana can't.
In BYU, but I think Louisville beating Clemson, though, is an important Louisville beating Clemson is an important key to that, because Miami beat Louisville earlier this season. But also, if it comes down to an ACC championship game, they're going to have a win over probably a highly ranked SMU team if SMU continues to win out. So, yeah, again, it's I understand why the committee puts out rankings this early in the season, because I think it's good to see like the sort of pattern making and like the thought process behind it, so that when the day the season ends, we don't just say like, wait, why is Tennessee in the top 5? This
But
makes
imagine
no sense.
if we did. This is what I loved about the final when it was the semifinals. Is just let's announce on the last day. Now imagine nobody has any idea,
No, they've
and
done
there are
this for-
12 teams,
they've
and they
done
wait
this-
till the last day.
They've been doing this for as long as there's been a 14 playoff. The ranking show.
Yeah,
back
no,
to-
and I've always said, what if we just got rid of all of them until the last week, and then wow, everybody
Yeah.
finds out all at once, and there is no tease.
I mean, the whole thing exists for television ratings, right? Like sports in general. Like we all.
What do you mean?
It's a great television product, so they're able to make a show every Tuesday where they're like, watch the show about the show that we're gonna have later this year, about the show that is the football game. So like, yeah, but I also think that it is sort of like helpful for fans to know what the thought process is going back to the first week of November, even though none of this might matter in 4 weeks. Like, in fact, most of it probably won't matter because Alabama and LSU, they play each other this weekend. Indiana plays Michigan this weekend. Like, there's going to be changes immediately.
The thing that I would like to know as an assessment, though, is someone who has only seen little bits of Indiana games when they are unbeaten, and I keep seeing 50 points next to their name. I'm not used to. Michael Penix introduced me to the idea of Indiana can be good at football, can be good at offense. I had no experience with that in my lifetime. Indiana's game logs, when you look at them, what are their close games? Because there's one thing that Miami is doing while barely beating Virginia Tech, while barely beating California. I don't think there's a barely beating in Indiana's schedule, but I haven't checked the game logs. It's just every time I look up, they've got 50 and someone's not close to that.
Yeah, I think their closest game was against Washington when their quarterback was out with an injury. So yeah, like they've been kicking ass. I think this is also though like a product of the preseason rankings having a strong influence on how people view teams, especially even late in the season where you would expect like preseason rankings by, week 5, who cares? But no, I think like if Indiana comes into the season ranked top 15, they're undefeated and they're going to be a lot higher than they are now.
That's silly, though,
but again,
isn't it?
It is very silly.
I mean,
I think that it's also really hard to, like, preseason rankings are hard to do, especially with a team like Indiana that has a first-year head coach that brought 14 transfers from his last school with him and a transfer quarterback from a MAC team who was, like, good, especially a couple years ago, but, like, we're not sure if he's going to be awesome at Indiana. And so, like, how do you evaluate that in the offseason? It's really, really hard to do that. And also, obviously, like, as we've always talked about, there is a sort of, like, name brand recognition that goes into ranking college football because you know which schools and which programs spend the most money on their teams. And so you sort of give, like, deference to them, whether or not you should. That happens with the rankings.
All the more reason to wait for all rankings until the last week of the season. But wouldn't that, if you're Indiana or if you're trying to figure out who the fake fraud or who the frauds are, Dan, wouldn't it be more leaning toward Indiana? Because it seems system is what they're relying on, not player, versus Miami, who seems to be relying more on player.
I want to go all in on Indiana just because they feel a little bit to me like Central Florida a few years ago, where everyone's like, how can they possibly be any good? But they keep showing you every week that they're good, and they might then stumble into, being better than everybody because they've beaten everyone they've played this year by at least 2 touchdowns.
You knew Indiana was going to be good when Kurt Signetti was like, I win, Google me. The vibes were through the roof at that point. I was like, hey, there's something there. Bloomington, right? Indiana?
Yeah, Bloomington.
There's something there?
It's a very nice college town, very pretty. Priya went there.
Sure.
I almost went there.
Priya.
I think the frustration, though, Dan, is that, like, can Indiana afford to lose to Ohio State? Like, I will find out, like, Penn State probably can, and that is frustrating if you look at their schedule comparison. Penn State has played a lot closer games with competition that they should be blowing out, which Indiana has done. So I think that's sort of what Indiana fans are more frustrated in.
Isn't it weird? You mentioned UCF, but usually when we have this kind of school that's an outsider to the party that's doing well, they usually play in a crappy conference, and that's why, right? But Indiana plays in the Big Ten. So they're playing not the same schedule, but a similar schedule to all the other blue bloods in the Big Ten.
People are waiting for them to play the best teams in the conference, though. They're not playing the best teams in the conference. And it's not a strong top-to-bottom conference. It's a top-heavy conference.
I mean, like yes and no. Like, it is interesting that – so they'll play Ohio State in 2 weeks. They play Michigan this weekend. Michigan's a team that, like, has really good players, but has been a weak team this year. They have a quarterback situation that they've been struggling with all season. They don't really have a real starting downfield passer that they trust. So they've been doing weird things with the quarterback position. They've got a lot of players on their defense out. Their defense is still really good. So even though Indiana is like a 14.5-point favorite, I think the margin of victory, if they do beat Michigan, will matter. But if you say they haven't played anyone yet, well, Penn State didn't really play anyone until last weekend either. They beat Illinois earlier in the season, 21-7, which looked good at the time, but now Illinois has gone on a downward skid towards the end of the season. Whereas, also, if you compare head-to-head, Ohio State played against Nebraska last weekend. It was a very close game. Indiana blew them out, 56-7, I think the final score was. So there is, some comparisons.
I'd love Indiana to surprise everybody.
The transitive property doesn't work in college football because there's, schemes matter and
sure.
If Indiana undresses Michigan, no matter how bad they are this year, people will start paying more attention to whatever this is, that we maybe got it wrong all season since before the season on Indiana because we're just not used to Indiana being
Isn't
any
that
good.
14.5-point spread pretty telling also?
I
definitely
think the idea that people don't believe in Indiana is going to be something that permeates the nation in football until Indiana actually holds up several trophies. I don't think people will believe that Indiana is a national elite at football until several championships after they've won the championship.
That's why when you bring up UCF, to me, when I watch this season, Miami is closer to that 2017 UCF team than Indiana is. We're talking about basically 2017 UCF with a good PR agent because they are absolutely.
Is that Mike?
I'm not going to say it.
Well, I think Miami, Miami, at this point in the season, the 3-loss Louisville team is now ranked. Maybe they will lose a couple games and be unranked when the season ends, but
Let my boy cook here. He's
sure,
ripping Miami.
I get what you're saying.
They have a couple of good wins against okay teams in a conference that is clearly not the SEC or the Big Ten as we look at the state of college football. You see a team going undefeated in a mediocre conference with a great quarterback, an incredible offense, a defense that gives up so many points that you're in every single game in the fourth quarter. But you're undefeated. A win's a win. And to me, I will cape up for this Miami team to be in the top 4 of those rankings because they deserve it. Because, guys, winning every single game, no matter how bad your conference is very difficult.
You can disparage it all you want. I don't even care to argue
Not disparagement.
about whether or not the University of Miami is actually excellent. You cannot argue with me that they're uninteresting. You will not be able to argue that it's an uninteresting team. It's a fun team, and I figure that Amin's in town only because the highlight of his football existence, I believe, was as a Georgia Tech alum last year showing up and ruining Miami's season because they couldn't beat your beloved Yellow Jackets.
The highlight of my football existence post-college, right? When I was in college,
Calvin Johnson was there when you were in college?
No, I was Joe Hamilton and
And
Des
them
White.
boys.
Des White. Yeah, that's my era back then. But we were top 5 in the nation. We lost a close game to Florida State at Tallahassee, where Peter Warwick was just incredible. It was a time. That was definitely the heyday. But this weekend, I was supposed to go to home. It's homecoming at Georgia Tech. I was gonna.
Miami
go.
can lose that one, man.
Dude,
Miami can lose that.
Can
one.
lose it. Where's my camera? I'm guaranteeing it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
It's not going to happen. Guys.
Got the shorts on, too.
Jessica's on record as saying Miami's going undefeated. That schedule is too easy.
No. Well, guess what? It gets a little harder on Saturday.
Not that much harder because Georgia Tech's 5-4 and not that good.
Doesn't matter. We weren't that good last year either.
That's your best argument.
Yeah, but Cam Ward didn't play for them last
Hey,
year.
then he's in for a rude awakening.
Okay. Regardless.
Wow.
Yes.
A rude awakening.
Ooh,
A rude awakening has been officially declared. There it is. The face of rude awakening. If he has a milkshake at midnight, be careful in the morning. Rude awakening.
Has the show figured out where heyday has come from? What is that? What is the heyday?
Is there a day when horses get hay? Is it hay? Is it horse related? Horse feeding time?
It's not spelled H-A-Y.
What is a heyday then?
I don't know, but it's not.
The critic doesn't have the solution. He only has the mockery. The critic doesn't have the answer. He just knows my answer is wrong. I'm throwing a guess into the wind.
You know what? I'm going to go with, I should yes and this. Yes. That's exactly it. The horses created the term. It's like, hey guys, you know what today is? What? It's hay day. Oh! The horses again, and like
They're like dancing. I'm picturing a horse like doing the, like in the Olympics,
On
the
two
way they're
legs.
trying this up.
Mike, guess what day it is?
It's hay day.
All right,
Let's
you guys,
go. We're getting to this.
You guys want to hear before we get to the heyday? You want to hear whether or not Chris Cody was indeed petering out while he was trying to read?
You Peter in because that's what I did here.
right.
I'm like Ryan Seacrest in this clip.
All right, you think this is you perfect broadcasting?
Kickoff once again at 2:25, streaming live on DLS YouTube. You must be 21 or older to go. That is a
Nailed
that is
it,
like
dude.
that is like a floor routine that is just
Bit of a shake. I heard a little shake at the end.
21 or older
Or-
to go. Like it's just that is just perfect. This segment is presented by LinkedIn Jobs. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/prep. Terms and conditions apply. Ryan Seacrest.
David Samson has an opinion. David Samson. Ryan Seacrest probably wouldn't talk at the exact moment that his partner was going to
You got to
talk.
lay out there. You got to know that joke's coming.
I've got to lay out there. Okay, very good. David Samson of Nothing Personal fame is with us now, and I have an assortment of questions to ask him inside and outside of sports. But let's get him in on our towel discussion here for a second. You guys would assume, if you had to take betting odds on this,
Obnoxious towels.
that for sure he's got monogram towels, correct? We're agreeing that there are. Oh, look,
Absolutely.
He's shaking his head. No, he will
Absolutely not.
not. All right, so
Expensive towels.
tell
though.
us about your towel situation, please.
I heard what all you said, and I am just blown away. I've got towels that have strict assignments, and they are in certain rooms for certain purposes. So in the bathroom, there are 3 hooks on the door. You have the bath towel. That is used for when you get out of the shower for your body. Then you've got a towel that is used for your ass. Then you've got a towel that's used for your face. And so you know which towel to use for which part of your body. So therefore, you would never have that happen. Secondly, if a guest uses a towel, and I keep towels in the guest room that are not for show, they're for use. But after every use, they are washed because I wouldn't want a guest to repeat a towel. Thirdly, I put napkins in the bathrooms because then people can use the napkins to dry themselves with a garbage can right next to the door if they feel as though the towel may be dirty.
The napkins sometimes break up when you're washing your hands and use a napkin to dry them. They break up and then they have a little residue and it's like, ugh, disgusting.
That's a fantastic point, which is why you have to use 4-ply napkins. Great point. You can't use like the Dixie cup napkins.
You also don't consider the climate at all in any of your consumption, correct?
That's not true at all. That's not true at all. I only do full loads of laundry. Full, like packed.
Thank you for that.
The jokers laugh back there as the world actually burns. one David Samson towel at a time.
David, I could go into your bathroom at any given time, and there is an ass towel just hanging center between 2 other towels.
It's in an order. You wouldn't know, and because I just told you. Now you know the order of the hooks, but I do that wherever I am because I don't understand the concept that people do where they use a bath towel and they use it for their front and their back. Do they remember which side they've used if they're using the same towel?
First of all, everything's
you're clean.
But the idea of using 3 separate towels after you take a shower is serial killer behavior.
I'm literally trying to figure out your system. Your system is you have one towel that you use for your entire body, including the taint, the ass, every part of your body, one towel.
Yours is way more complicated. I guarantee you've used the ass towel on your face before an accident.
No
You've
way.
done it.
Oh, I
You've done it.
guarantee you I haven't.
No way. No chance. He's a germaphobe. He knows exactly.
chance.
Look,
Oops.
let me explain something to you. This I know about David Samson if I know no other truth. Wherever he is on earth, he knows where that ass towel is.
Right.
And that towel.
The only thing.
It's the only thing. I may know nothing else about him, but wherever he is anywhere in the earth where that ass towel has been used, it's not getting near his face. No chance. That's why it
The
exists.
only thing you know.
I'm going to break into your house and just rearrange your towels.
It's also especially dangerous because do you or do you not have a sense of smell? I can't remember.
He doesn't.
So I don't, but that's not relevant. I didn't start this just post-COVID in 21. This has been a thing. Now, I was made fun of in college because when you're in a dorm situation where you share a bathroom and you share a room with someone, it's a totally weird thing that you have to do with your hooks and your towels, because people tend to come into your dorm room and think, oh, that's an available towel to use. And that was the beginning of people understanding certain things of mine I do not want touched.
When it comes to you being an organizational person, what would you regard as your strangest obsessive compulsive or anal quality compared to others?
Well, I can only compare it to the people who I'm around. I am very, very organized when it comes to the dishes and when it comes to my clothing, and that I don't want to wear. I happen to live with someone who wears the same pair of 3 underwear because you wash them, put them back on top, and then you just wear the same ones. I don't get that. When I do wash, I put them on the bottom of the pile. When I do dishes, I put the dishes on the bottom. It takes an extra second because you have to lift like the 8 dishes you didn't use out of the cabinet, put the 2 dishes you did use on the bottom, and then put the 8 on top back. And that way you get equal and even use of all of your stuff. I do that with silverware, dishes, socks, underwear, shirts. As a matter of fact,
You
I do that with
rotate your
everything.
silverware.
I rotate. Yes, otherwise you're using the same 2 forks. I don't even understand the concept of people not doing that.
He just blew my mind with that. I just realized I have plates that I've never used before. Like those 5th and 6th ones
Put it
down,
on the
I've
poll,
never used
Juju.
those.
Do you have plates that you've never used before? I'm going to say half of my plates I've never used before. I'm going to say half of them.
That means that you're not wearing your things out at an even pace. So how do you know when they have to be replaced?
I mean, it's just a plate. It works every time.
Do plates get worn out?
That's what I've never looked at my plate like, oh man, this one I need to change this one out.
Silverware get worn out?
No.
But you're using the same fork. It's fine. You can criticize it all you want. I'm not going to change what I do. It works for me, and it's very easy to do. It's not like a sickness I have. It's not hard to put 2 forks underneath 10 forks when you're in your silverware drawer.
I'm not criticizing. I'm asking the question, does my fork get worn out?
I believe that forks get worn out because the constant in the mouth, some people put their teeth on the fork, which is obviously disgusting when they eat.
Yeah,
that drives
sound.
me insane. I
That
hate
scraping
that.
noise.
The fork, I've got to say, I think most people listening to this would say the fork's lifespan is plus 20 years.
Never thought about it.
I'm thinking most people listening to this are saying the fork is not slowly rotting one mouth bacteria at a time. It's going to endure for decades.
Well, you can especially do that if you're using one fork time and time again. I think you're lowering the useful life if you're using the same thing. How about looking at your skivvies? Don't you have to replace them more if you wear the same 2 pair every other day?
Skivvy's a great term used by 80-year-olds all over our land. At Le Batard Show, over under on age of person who uses skivvies, 80 years old, over under. Also put on the poll at Le Batard Show, expiration day of the average fork, 20 years plus or minus.
I'm taking the over like by another 20 years. Like when I bought silverware when I moved to Florida, 'cause it was the first time I ever needed to like buy silverware. I was like, I'm gonna have this silverware till I'm like 65 years old. That was my thought process. I better pick something sleek because I'm gonna have this for the rest of my life, baby.
How often do you turn over your silverware, David?
Switch out the sets of silverware?
No, like new silverware. You're like, when are you due for new silverware?
I have a useful life of stuff that just rotates in different parts of my life. So there's premium silverware, which is to be used for dinner, secondary silverware for lunch, and then for guests, there's a 3rd set, and it's priced that way. And that for guests, you have like plastic or the sort of Costco type silverware, and that stuff is the 10 years. My silverware is probably every 5 years. It's not all that expensive.
You got
by the
guest
way.
silverware?
Well, yes. I don't want guests using what I use.
Look,
that's gross.
Let me explain something to you. He is in a place where he's making sure that guests are using different things than him, and he is fully aware at that time of where his ass towel is. Like wherever it is, he is in the world. In the world, he knows that. Look, he's building a stadium over here for the Marlins, and he knows where the ass towel is. Like these are the things that his head is occupied by.
David, how much would I have to pay you to take a bite of a sandwich that I've already bitten?
For you to take a bite of my sandwich that I've already had?
I've taken a bite of my sandwich, and then I'm holding it over to you, and you have to take a bite from the same spot I took a bite from.
I just wouldn't.
There's got to be a number.
There is a number. Yeah, obviously there's a number, but it's a big number. It would require your dad's help, is my guess. But I am not that
Let's
interested in that
negotiate
game.
this.
Let's do this.
Wait, but what could be the single most disgusting thing in your mind in terms of something that you'd have to share as a germaphobe with someone here? Which is the one in your imagination that is most troubling to you that we'd have to pay the most for to get you to do?
Easy. Putting on someone's stained underwear.
Wow,
Christ,
aggressive. Yes, no one.
I was
going to
say sharing a burrito.
Yes, okay. Yes, that was an easy one. I'm sorry I made it so easy. Can you get a little more human and do something that the rest of us would also maybe do that you're disgusted by?
I don't share straws.
Okay, I don't.
What if you're romantically involved with the person with whom you're sharing the straw?
It wasn't the reason I'm divorced, but it definitely came up. Is you're willing to have sex with me, but you will not share a straw, and I found that to be a reasonable boundary.
That's a great argument, by the way. How did you counter that?
I said it's disgusting to share a straw.
The judge banged their gavel after that one.
Yeah, it was a good one. That's why there's a divorce. I had no answer. I had to run.
David, your thoughts here on Joel Embiid's suspension, 3 games and $1 million, not insignificant, $1 million for putting his hands on a reporter.
Well, I think it should have been more. I just was surprised what Joe Dumars did. And you've got the basketball experts right there in your studio. Let me tell you my reaction as a front office. I went to see Joel Embiid after speaking to the league, and I said, all right, your knee's good to go right now. He got healthy really fast, and he's serving the suspension Wednesday night, Friday, and Sunday, so he's ready to go for the Emirates in-season tournament. And I don't like how that worked, because the way Joe Dumars stated it was that when Embiid is able to play, the suspension will start. I'm not sure when Embiid was going to come back. He hadn't played all year, and all of a sudden he gets suspended. Hey, I'm good now. I would have played today, so this counts as game 1. So I am not in favor. I would have had him do it later in the season, or I said it on Nothing Personal, and you said it on your show. I love the idea of making him play games instead of sitting games as his punishment.
Do you have any thoughts? Because I heard this on Nothing Personal, and I haven't heard it elsewhere. Have you guys heard a lot of people saying the NFL is in bad shape? That the NFL is in bad shape. Have you guys heard that many places? Never mind that there are, a lot of 2-win teams and some of the teams are shitty, but you have, what do you mean? You have said on Nothing Personal the NFL is in bad shape.
I want to clear. I mean, it was a full segment. I love that you heard the snippet. I really do. But here's what I said. For the first time this century, they have 9 teams after week 9 with 2 wins or fewer. That's never happened this entire century. And what Roger Goodell has been craving is this parity. He wants to live in this world of mediocrity. And what's happened is it's actually gone the other way. And you've got a huge band now, a large standard deviation between teams that are good and teams that are bad. And it's gone against what he's been trying to do. So when I say the NFL is in bad shape, because they had a goal and they're not reaching it because so many teams are so bad.
What's the movie you're reviewing for us this week?
So I watched this yesterday. I hope some of you watch this, please. It's called Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. It's a new documentary on Apple TV. I go for the room?
I know the story, and I'm interested in the story.
I remember when it was released, it did very well in the festivals, and I was waiting for it to come out on streaming. So
I imagine it's very hard to watch.
It is extremely hard to watch, and people may not remember the story because I thought I remembered the story, and it turns out that through home video and through all sorts of interesting ways that they made the movie, you find out what he went through truly after the accident, what the family went through, and what the children went through. And while you could call them children of privilege and people of privilege, there was nothing privileged about their life. And when you look at the son, the first time he's on camera, the little boy named Will Reeve, it is mind-boggling. He looks like Superman, but he hasn't had the life of Superman, because at the end of the day, we make fun of celebrities and billionaires and whatever you all do. This guy lost his parents. Money doesn't make that feel better in any way. And the truth is, Christopher Reeve wasn't the type of rich that people thought he was. It happens a lot with musicians. It happens all the time, with pro athletes who everyone assumes they retire and never have to work again, and it's just not accurate. It's a really good documentary that has a chance to be shortlisted for an Academy Award.
My dad just texted me and said he also rotates used items. What? This is apparently a common thing.
Is it a common thing of certain?
Or they have the same mental illness. I'm not sure.
Age bracket, tax bracket. Speaking of mental illness, we've got a legitimate debate, I would think, between how Jessica feels about marathons and how David Samson feels about marathons. I believe hot take right now. I believe we could do first take with Jessica and David arguing about the merit of marathons.
What is the negative position you're taking?
I think that the worst thing that Lehman could tell me if I came home from work today was, hey, I'm going to start running marathons.
Oh, because he'll be apart from you training, you mean?
No. No, because there will be an expectation that I go to the marathons that he's running in and wave from the sideline.
Jessica, I'm glad you brought that up because over the weekend, obviously, the New York Marathon happened, and I was staggered at how many people I know who are like, I'm over here at the marathon standing outside in the cold, just holding a sign. I'm like, I'm from New York City. I've never done that in my life. Never felt the need to ever be out there to see people run. If anything, it was always a pain in the ass because you can't get from one side of town to the other because it shut down all the streets.
Yeah, I was in New York on Sunday. Same thing. I wanted to see some of my friends. I walked outside. I turned around. I was Homer Simpson's dad. I walked right back inside. I was not going anywhere on Sunday. But that was
tell you.
Go ahead, David.
No, I'm sorry, but we need you. You as a spectator, it's so helpful to the runners. The sound, the noise, the cheering. You put your name on the front of your jersey and just strangers are cheering for you and helping you go when you don't think your body can go. So New York is the best marathon in the world in terms of spectators. The wall of sound on First Avenue off the 59th Street Bridge is like nothing you've ever heard. And I'm not asking, Lehman wouldn't be asking you to go watch. It's really hard to be a spectator, you're right. But encouraging people to do marathons and taking that first step, it's an amazing thing that I would hope that you'd all be behind is the level of discipline required to have your body do something that, is hard to do.
I think this guy is the bigger hero than anyone running in the marathon. This is the guy that uses a broom to shoo people away from
unregistered
runners away from the track. He is just in the middle of the street. I don't know how he spots them from a mile away, and he's like, "Get out of here!" And they're like, "No, I'm going to keep going." He's like, "No."
Is he an actual official? Like people are listening to him, and do they have to?
In a bathrobe with a broom? You think he's an actual official?
People are listening to him. Look, this lady's like, "All right, I'll leave."
Because if someone with a bathroom and a broom comes up to you and tries to change the rules of society, you'll listen because they're crazy.
So that's one of the great volunteers. I would shout out to so many of the thousands of people who volunteered during the marathon. What's happening there is you sweep the cups after a water station because it gets super slippery for the runners.
Okay.
So she's sweeping the strewn cups that people have taken water and thrown on the ground. There's volunteers who sweep that away.
Dan and me were on the same page. We thought he was like the Sandman at the Apollo, right? He's sweeping
That's my man.
I think, David, though, to go back for a second, it's not that I don't think that the people that are cheering on the marathon runners are incredible and they're showing support, and it would be incredible to run in one of these races. It's just that I don't want to ever be doing that for my boyfriend personally.
And you can just be honest with him, and that's totally fine. But the funny part is that you're saying that now. When you see the time, effort, and dedication that he would put into training just to get to the start line, you would go and watch him because you love him that much.
No, she wants to watch Notre Dame on Saturday. David, thank you. Good seeing you.
Take care.
Hey guys, welcome back to GenCFB. This is a pimple patch, all right? I got to say it, I get zits. I'm not proud of it, but I do. But I take care of it, so don't worry about it.
It's a cute little cloud.
It's cute. No free ads, but Starface, they do good stuff.
That is adorable. Lucy, hey, how we feeling after the first college football playoff rankings came out last night?
Outside of the zit, I'm okay. But within the college football playoff rankings, they always I never feel a ton of things after the first one because I know it's just designed to make me angry. And I don't want to use up all my anger right now, knowing that I am going to need it in 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's true. I'm feeling the same way, and I'm also feeling the cheesiest this season with Cheez-It. So we're going to talk a little bit about the college football playoff rankings that came out on Tuesday, and then we're going to talk about a couple great rivalry performances from Week 10, and of course do our preview for Week 11. I can't believe we're already going into Week 11. It just blows my mind how fast the season goes by, Lucy. But what was your main issue, takeaway, thought after seeing these playoff rankings?
It's the same issue I have every single time the playoff rankings come out, that I'm like, what are your metrics? Like, what are we ranking things off of? Because I don't know. It's quality wins, it's quality losses, it's eye test, it's all of these different things that nothing seems to align with. This one's interesting because there's 12 teams now. Obviously, that changes everything, and there's so much more room for things to change over the next few weeks. But Penn State being ranked 6 above Indiana, I thought was kind of crazy. I understand that Penn State did have a close loss, but Indiana has no close wins. They have no losses. They have beat every team by 8 million points. They did trail this week, but ended up winning still by 37. So, I don't know. It's just, it feels like they're sowing the seeds for just kind of teams we expect in the playoff to be there, not necessarily based off of how they've played, where they rank compared to other schedules, whatever. They just make shit up.
Indiana's ranked number 8, like you said, behind Tennessee and Penn State. And so there's a question of how much preseason expectations and rankings really weigh on the committee even this far into the season. Because I think if Indiana were ranked in the top 25 going into this college football season, they'd be ranked a lot higher this week, at least a couple spots higher, at least higher than Penn State. And obviously, like you said, it's only the first week. Indiana's playing Michigan this weekend, where they're a big favorite, and I think that will be a good boost for them. Even though we know this Michigan team is not as elite as it was last year, they've lost a handful of games. That'll be a good comparison test because we saw Texas play against Michigan earlier this season, and we saw a healthier Michigan team even in that game. So I think things will change, obviously, as more games get played. Alabama and LSU still play this weekend, so it's going to change very quickly. But I'm with you on Indiana, and I wanted to bring up Ward Manuel's comments about Indiana and Penn State it's actually this question was about specifically why Penn State was ahead of Tennessee and BYU, Lucy. So last weekend we saw Penn State and Ohio State play each other. Obviously, Ohio State won. And Ward Manuel said this: Penn State lost to the number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes, and it was a game that went back and forth, and obviously a game that could have gone the other way. It was back and forth. True or false, do you agree with that statement?
This game has not been back and forth for 10 years. Like, what are we talking about?
He also said they also have wins over Illinois and Southern Cal in overtime, an opening win at West Virginia, which is difficult to play. So we looked at their body of work.
Okay, close wins against USC. Those are losses. Those are losses. Burt Bielema cannot be the standard. You can't say you beat Burt, so you should be a top 10 team.
Right. And that also, well, I'll keep moving because we could pick through this, I think, very easily. But yes, like USC has really fallen off a cliff this year. They benched their quarterback this weekend. They're moving on after just another awful performance. So the next thing he said was Tennessee has an impressive win over Alabama. True. And wins over North Carolina State and Oklahoma. Oklahoma, okay. They're 4-1 against teams above 500. The loss at Arkansas was something we discussed a lot. So looking at the resume, looking at what we've seen, the offensive performance, their tight end Tyler Warren, this is back to Penn State now, is a dominating force on offense. I think Penn State, in terms of their body of work and what the committee saw in terms of their body of work, came to the ranking at 6 and Tennessee at 7.
Okay.
So this is like the reasoning, and when you get into the nitty gritty, Lucy, that is also my reaction. I'm just like, okay,
all right.
I think BYU should be higher. They're undefeated. I think Indiana should be higher. They're undefeated. If they lose, they'll go back down. There's still a month left of football.
What's the point of hyping up Tyler Warren if James Franklin doesn't use him when absolutely necessary? Does it matter then? Like, what are we doing? You don't just get to name. If we're just naming tight ends, then you better put Iowa in the top 10.
I mean, put Michigan up there too.
Exactly.
Like, there's a lot of good tight ends. We're making good tight ends this year. Yeah. It's just it's an interesting process, one that we were gonna obviously keep an eye on because while I like that we get to see the college football playoff committees like thought process and reasoning starting this week, there's always some baffling things that happen in the first ranking, like Missouri at 24.
What are we doing? And they have like talked about like we're using the eye test. That's why Indiana's in the top 10 despite having not a very strong strength of schedule. If you are using the eye test with Mizzou, you should go see an ophthalmologist. They're bad. They're not good.
No. Okay. So we talked about the sort of undefeated power conference schools. Any surprises with you seeing Boise up there at number 12?
I was a little surprised that they were ranked as high. I think that Boise State is in such a good position right now. And it's kind of the interesting thing with this playoff is that it actually applies to everybody. You went out and you're already in the top 10, top 12, you're good. Yeah, it's their spot to lose. I think I saw a lot of like discourse just about like, wow, that 5-12 matchup is really going to suck. Boise State's very good. They challenged Oregon this year. They have the best player in college football. I think that they'll stick around in that spot. I don't necessarily know if I see them jumping a lot higher. I have a hard time imagining that a 2-loss SEC team would be ranked lower than a 1-loss Boise State team. So I kind of think they're going to end up staying in that spot. I only really see them dropping, not raising at all, which will still keep them in the 12 seed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, SMU coming in at 13, I think, again, is like because you saw BYU go down to 9. SMU's only losses to BYU, so that sort of like puts them in that place. Clemson all the way down to 23 after losing to Louisville. Now Louisville is ranked in the top 25. Miami, that really helps Miami because they beat Louisville earlier this season. It also helps Notre Dame because they beat Louisville earlier this season. Iowa State, brutal loss last weekend, Lucy. They're at 17. Do you see a world in which the loser of the Big 12 or the ACC makes the playoff if it is one of the undefeated teams losing to a 1-loss team?
I think that if Miami loses, they could still very much make the playoff, but I don't think that applies to anybody else. The Big 12 has just it's absorbed all of what was left of the Pac-12 in the sense that they're just beating the literal shit out of each other. So, like, I don't see if you win the conference title, you're in, and I think that's what it's going to take. Like, I don't see BYU losing again and then making it because I just genuinely think that if you look at this again, if there's a 2-loss or a 3-loss Big Ten team that has more brand value than BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State, even though Kansas State had a horrible loss, they're not making it. I don't think they'll ever pick a Big 12 team over a Penn State, over
Big Ten bias.
Any sort of big, like they're going to pick Alabama over BYU every single time.
Well, let's move on maybe to our rivalries from Week 10, Lucy, unless you have any other thoughts on the playoff.
I would be okay if I didn't hear quality losses for a while. Shout out Billy, I guess. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that was a big Billy Gill thing with the NFL. But yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about what happened last weekend now. This is sort of a crossover topic. Vandy versus the College Football Playoff Committee, Lucy. Vanderbilt was the only team that was ranked in the AP poll this week, but was not in the College Football Playoff Top 25. What the hell, man?
They spent the whole show talking about how the SEC's never been better, but you don't put Vanderbilt in there. Half of the reason when they were going through the playoff where they were like, wow, Mizzou 24. I guess it's because of that quality win over Vanderbilt. And then you're not going to put them in there? Don't be disrespectful. Don't be rude.
They said that about Texas, too. They were like, Texas beat Vanderbilt on the road. I'm like, well, then
where are put them in the bowl.
But
justice.
Vanderbilt obviously coming off of a great win over Auburn this past weekend, which is another big rivalry from Week 10. Diego Pavia versus Hugh Freeze. Lucy, what's going on?
I don't know if you can call it a rivalry because that would require Hugh Freeze to win against Diego Pavia ever. And that has not happened. He is 0-3 against our superhero, savior of college football, Diego Pavia. He beat him Diego Pavia won while at New Mexico State over both Liberty and Auburn. And then this weekend, Vanderbilt beat Auburn, I believe, at Auburn, which has pushed Hugh Freeze to a worse record than Brian Harsin had, but they're not ready for that conversation quite yet. Yeah, this isn't even a rivalry. Look,
An ass kicking.
This is an ass kicking, and it's one we like to see. And I think it's really disgusting of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee to not acknowledge it.
Yeah, I agree with you. We need to respect Vanderbilt. People are like, "Oh, Cal is only 6 points away from being undefeated." Well, what about Vanderbilt? They lost their games by some pretty small margins, and so they should be. I mean, not that Cal is ranked either, as they shouldn't be. They lost to Florida State. But anyways, I digress. There was a little bit of a frosty handshake, maybe a budding South Florida rivalry this past week. It was one of the weekday games. I think it was Friday night, might have been Thursday night. I can't even remember. All the days blend together right now. But Alex Golesh and Tom Herman with an icy, frosty, no handshake thing after USF and FAU played. Lucy, what is this a budding rivalry now?
I think it's a rivalry between the two coaches, not between the two schools. This game was a blowout. So my understanding of this situation was the handshake happened. We'll have a video. I'll narrate it for you. And then so Alex Golesh ignored Tom Herman as he went for the handshake, and then Tom Herman followed him back and was like tapping him and whatever.
Yeah.
And so this is in relation to USF beat the literal out of FAU this weekend. They crushed them. They won by double digits.
44-21.
Yes. And USF decided to go for 2 when they clearly didn't need to do that. However, reverse Uno card, this happened last year in the same situation, but FAU under Tom Herman decided to go for an onside kick when it was unnecessary. So it was just a little bit of like back and forth. I think it's valid. If you can't don't dish it if you can't take it.
I heard that Tom Herman or one of his staff members had made a mean comment about USF in the offseason, which I couldn't find. But like you said, there was a big like, I want to shake your hand moment on the field post game. That was very funny.
I went and like read up on I was reading just like the worst, like most bummy articles ever about this, that you're like, this is not a real source, but there was like, he said stuff about his family and his background and where he came from, and I'm like, what are we talking? I didn't think it was real, so that's why I'm saying it with a caution here. But
apparently he said like we don't like them and I hope they don't like us, but
yeah,
seems like there's more to it.
Yeah, the way I read it was like Alex Golesh being like, I hate Tom Herman's family, or vice versa. I don't know. It doesn't seem. I read it and then I looked and I said, I don't know if this is a website I should be on. I think I'm gonna need to take my MacBook to Apple Care after visiting this website.
Again?
So again, my laptop shattered internally and I have a zit. I've just been going through a lot recently.
Oh, Lucy.
It's okay. Everything's cool. Don't worry. At least our country's in a good spot. So, but yeah, that's my takeaway. Everything's awesome.
Well, we already mentioned a little bit about Penn State and Ohio State. There was another budding rivalry. This has been ongoing for a couple of years now. Penn State fans versus James Franklin. Now, I know that there's a lot of Penn State fans that are like, James Franklin's done great things to this program, and we're actually in a really good spot, even though we can literally never beat Ohio State. Like, this is the right coach for us. He's done good things here. There's also a lot of Penn State fans that were heckling James Franklin after the Ohio State game. Lucy, break this down for us.
There were definitely more heckling than not. So this was the game we were at, and obviously the game ends, and I look over by the student section, and Texas has started just the nastiest trend. Everybody's throwing trash. So all the Penn State fans are throwing water bottles and trash onto the field. They go over the PA, and they're like, hey, stop throwing trash. That's not allowed. Okay, people are starting to leave the stadium, and then they're like, well, thank you guys for coming out, blah, blah, blah. You guys can tune in to the James Franklin radio show. And the second that they said James Franklin, it was the loudest I heard the stadium the whole day. Just a barrage of boos. We tried to make our way into the locker room, which, by the way, Penn State's locker room, like, fans can wait outside of it because it's how they have to get through the stadium. So there are fans being held off. There's a lot of people there. James Franklin ends up getting in an interaction with a fan in the stands who is, telling him he sucks or whatever. And James Franklin's like, tell me your name. If you're going to say it, be bold enough to tell me your name, which most of the time I'm all for hey, if you're going to say something, you should be held accountable for it. But like, I don't know if this was the right time and place for that, James. I feel like maybe we could
Just ignore it.
Yeah, maybe we could have just left this. But the kid just turned around. It didn't tell him his name. Also, just lie, say a fake name, just Seymour Butts or whatever, and then bam, you got James Franklin so
Seymour
bad.
Wiener.
There we go.
Mets fan legend. Yeah, oh man, yeah, it was it's not a great moment.
And then as he walked into the locker room, as that happened, there were all these fans lined up, and they were all chanting "Fire Franklin" as he walked by.
Ooh.
Like it was like a public just stoning in a sense, which I would normally feel bad for him. However, Penn State fans have watched that game 8 times in a row, and it's played out exactly the same, and it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
And so have we, college football fans, and I'm sick of it. I'm boycotting Penn State, Ohio State until Penn State wins that series. I'm over it. Two other nice little rivalry moments this weekend, Lucy. Shane Beamer versus a random SEC team in the top 10 on a random night on a random season in college football. How does he keep pulling this off?
It's got to make Penn State fans so mad to be like, how do you get to do this once a year? What do you mean you get to beat a top 10 team once a year? That can't be allowed. Yeah, South Carolina has really taken on what like Purdue sort of was to the Big Ten for a few years, where they're like, you don't want to see him. You don't know what you're going to get, which they played incredibly well. I think what was so insane about this game, this win over A&M, was that they dominated. It wasn't a close game by any means. Like the score was closer than it actually was. Looks like a great atmosphere. Made me sad that I didn't get to go to the night game and I went to the day game where
you could have climbed over the hedges.
I know, it looked cool. It made me so sad because I was like, why did you guys not do this against Ole Miss? I would have had way more fun. But insane win because they lost. But
by a lot.
Yeah, and then Shane Beamer brought his wife into the locker room and they sang her a song, and he seems just like a real fun, cool guy. So yeah, South Carolina just has this energy. They did the same thing to Tennessee a few years ago. They used to do this to Georgia all the time. They're just like, we may not have the best season ever, but we'll ruin yours.
Yeah, their defense outplayed Texas A&M's defense, and Texas A&M just like they couldn't stop South Carolina. That was a really fun one. Before we move on to our Week 11 preview, Lucy, do you want to talk about Pitt and Iowa State fans versus the AP poll, Mike Norvell versus 2024, or Clemson fans versus other Clemson fans?
That's tough. Oh, well, I always like talking about how Florida State has won one game this season, which is not good. That's bad. Carolina beat them this weekend. Shout out Taylor. I think I want to go Pitt and Iowa State fans versus the AP poll. Not very happy campers, especially Iowa State fans. I'm on that side of Twitter. They were like, we shouldn't be 11 sharing a spot with Clemson. We're better than Clemson. We should be number 1. We're the number 1 team in the world. We haven't lost. And then they lost.
Yep. I saw a lot of Pitt and Iowa State fans last week when they were both undefeated, really mad at the AP poll voters, and then both proceeded to lose, which then, I mean, it goes to show you, Lucy, even if you're ranked, even if you're undefeated, it's hard to go undefeated in a college football season. It's hard to win games, and now we're entering November, which is when it gets even harder. There's going to be weather at play. Injuries are piling up for a lot of these teams, and I think things are going to get slightly more unpredictable down this final stretch, especially as we see teams sort of like play their way out of the college football playoff, which could happen this weekend with number 11 Alabama at number 14 LSU. The first game we're going to preview. Lucy, are you going to this game?
I am going to this game.
Woo-hoo!
I am very, very excited.
Thank God you said yes. I wasn't sure. And then I asked and I was like, this is going to be so awkward if she says no.
It's happened so many times. LSU said yes. We're going to Death Valley. I'm so excited. This week 11 is going to be great. And it is brought to you by Hampton Farms Peanuts. Get nutty with Hampton Farms Peanuts, the official snack nut of the tailgate. I know they're going to have Hampton Farm Peanuts at LSU. They tailgate so well. There's no way they wouldn't have them there.
Yes, you're 100% right. They have the spicy ones too.
I love the spicy ones. Those are the best.
LSU
I don't know if I'm
coming
allowed
off.
to say that.
No, you are. I think we've said that in every episode that we've
They're
had
the best.
Hampton Farm sponsor.
They're the best.
Well, LSU's coming off a bye. We're going to find out if they were able to fix their QB run game. Alabama, I mean, both teams really have to win this game, right? Like, Alabama has to win it to stay where they're at number 11 in the college football playoff rankings. LSU lost to USC earlier in the season. They lost to Texas A&M in a very dramatic, not because it was close, but dramatic in that it was shocking fashion 2 weeks ago. So stakes are at an all-time high for this one. It kind of feels like 2022 when Alabama had lost to Tennessee and came into Death Valley, and Brian Kelly finally defeated Nick Saban. But now Brian Kelly against Kalen DeBoer, LSU and Garrett Nussmeier against Jalen Milroe, our unanimous September Heisman finalist, actually our unanimous Heisman September champion. Lucy, I'm picking Alabama to win this game, but I don't feel good about it.
I'm picking LSU, not confidently. Well, when I saw the stat, and I'm sorry, the stat might make you sick, Jess, but Brian Kelly has not lost a night game at LSU so far. Like, they're 13-0 under him for night games, so I think that that's going to play a factor in this. I just am having a hard time buying into either of these teams right now, but Alabama has not looked good. I know they turned it around against Mizzou, but we kind of talked about it. It's Mizzou. This is a playoff elimination game, which is kind of crazy. I think LSU is going to win because I think Alabama really doesn't have anything sort of figured out. Their identity isn't clear right now. Their defense isn't clear right now. And I'm not saying that LSU is in a much better spot, but they have the better environment, which will make a huge difference.
You're right, Lucy. I'm going against the grain here, picking against LSU night games, which I said a few weeks ago when they played Ole Miss. I was never going to do, but I just did it. So I'm picking Alabama. Another big SEC game, Georgia at Ole Miss. Carson Beck. What's going on with Carson Beck? He is throwing picks left. He is throwing picks right. He is a turnover machine right now. And Ole Miss defense, they're pretty good against the pass, Lucy. I don't feel very good about Carson Beck not turning the ball over right now.
It is insane how bad he has looked over the last few weeks. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, like, you don't have Brock Bowers anymore. You don't have Ladd McConkey. You don't have these guys that you've been so accustomed to and these really great receivers. But yeah, I just don't tend to trust Lane Kiffin in these big game situations. He doesn't seem to win. I do think Ole Miss is very good, but I just think Georgia is better. So I do think Georgia's going to win.
I agree with you. I'm going to pick Georgia. I don't know why. I mean, maybe I'm doing the old eye test because I think Georgia, if you look at like some of the advanced stats and stuff, they could be pretty evenly matched. But I do think Georgia's defense is going to just ball out in this game and make things very difficult for Ole Miss's run attack. And they're going to have to just have Jackson Dart's going to have a really good game to win this one. So I'm taking Georgia. Before we go, we're running out of time, but a couple other big games. We mentioned Michigan and Indiana. They're playing this weekend. Indiana is a big favorite. This is going to be a style points game, I think, for Indiana. A, they got to win the game, but B, I think, Lucy, they got to cover that 14.5 point spread. Do you think they'll do it?
I do. Michigan cannot score points. They cannot do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, Michigan's defense is pretty injured right now, not starting all their bests. But if Indiana can score a lot, I don't see Michigan being able to match that. Colorado and Texas Tech. We obviously have not talked about Colorado nearly as much as we probably should have this year because we talked about them way too much last year. But this is a really, really big game. Texas Tech, we know, is capable of upsetting top teams, especially in the Big 12. So Colorado, Texas Tech, Lucy, are you picking the Buffaloes, the Buffs?
I don't know who I'm picking in this one. The thing with Texas Tech is we've seen that they can pull an upset. We've also seen that they can lose to Baylor. So you're like, I don't know about
okay, but Baylor sneaky is going to make a bowl game.
What's going on with Baylor?
Like, what happened? They beat TCU this weekend.
There's too much happening. There's too much going on.
I agree with you.
I'm going to stay away from this one. I'm leaning towards Colorado, but games in Lubbock always are weird. Something is always off.
Man, I was just reveling in the graphic of Baker Mayfield versus Pat Mahomes that was on Monday Night Football this week, where they showed how many offensive yards and pass attempts and touchdowns they scored in that game from 2016. And I was just staring at Patrick Mahomes with 88 pass attempts. Man, I miss the old Big 12. Those were the good old days.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
All right, Lucy. South Carolina at Vanderbilt. Any chance Vandy pulls off another big upset?
I think Vanderbilt will win. I think South Carolina used a lot of their juju last week. They don't tend to do it back to back. They get like the one and it's awesome, and they're like, all right, well, we did it. Check that box. Let's go to the Mayo Bowl. I'm leaning Vanderbilt on this one. It's also at home for Vandy.
Me too. And I'm wearing my brand new Vanderbilt dad shirt, courtesy of Lehman. So, I hopped on the Vandy bandwagon. So what? What are you gonna do?
Anchor down.
Go Doors, I think.
Yeah.
I tend to turn to this man in need of wisdom in times of trouble, in times of soothing, in times of laughter. I did not find a whole lot of people in America talking yesterday or the last couple of days in a way that felt in any way authentically soothing or hopeful. I felt a lot of people trying to do that, as the UK, a newspaper in the UK, had an illustration of the Statue of Liberty holding a gun to her head, and the headline read simply, "The End." And look, Meech, that makes him laugh. Look at him. Meech, during these troubling times, Amaechi is laughing at the Statue of Liberty, because it is. It's a good. It's obviously got a lot of doom and dark humor in it, but you like your dark humor, and I do. I am curious what your thoughts are as you see. It seems like America is in deep and desperate peril.
So that's definitely how I felt at about 5 a.m. Yesterday, day before, whenever it was. It's definitely how I felt, peril. But despite the fact that I think it is a searing indictment of any person to align yourself with a serial sexual offender, there is always hope, and there are people who want to still create a better world out there. Human dignity didn't die yesterday, and people's regard for it didn't dissipate. Some of the pressure against poor behavior has been relieved, and that's going to cause us some problems over the next decade, probably. There's certainly a legislative pressure that many of us feel, the idea that things could be made law that would make our lives much harder. But there's always hope. When the Pandora's box was opened, lots of nasties came out, and sometimes you just have to dig deep and look in the bottom, and there is hope, and there will be hope.
It felt like a loss for decency, though. Wherever it is that you align, and we can make it about the economy. We can make it about I'm out of touch. I don't understand what surrounds me, because the money issue is a real one. And I do understand, John, anyone who has money problems, who think there are no larger problems than being able to pay for basic necessities and is mad at government because of that, I totally get that as a vantage point. But for that to usurp every other decency, John.
Yeah, I mean, I try to give human beings a little more agency nowadays, because I think I developed what was a rather overly paternal view. This idea that if people made poor decisions, it was because they were stupid, or it was because they'd been misled, or they didn't know any better. And I think it is a much more honest, if slightly disappointing view, to consider that people knew that he was a criminal and a philanderer, and they understood that that was not compatible with their own teachings or lives. It's certainly not something they'd want from their partners. It's not something they'd want for their children. Most people who have jobs recognize that it's not qualities they want in the people they hire. But, and this is the searing indictment of it, Donald Trump hates all the right people for a lot of people. He behaves in a way, as cartoonish as it is, that almost all of us have wanted to behave at one time or another. When some pompous, officious person has been in our way, we've wanted to just push them out the way and stand at the front because we did this project, or we're from the biggest company, or we're the biggest person. And he does that. And there's something on a very base level that's appealing about that. So I'm not surprised. I mean, nobody should be surprised that he won. He is the epitome of how so many of us wish we could operate around people that we might have legitimate grievances against. But what people have forgotten is that that's how he operates around everybody. This is the man who would call for the murder of innocent people. This is the man who says that not all human beings are even human. This is the person who uses the language of the blood of America being poisoned. So I think when people look at him, his superficial appeal, they kind of give over their conscience into this one man, relieving the pressure that they might feel for voting for somebody they know to be unfit in so many ways, even if he is a financial genius, which I think evidence would suggest he's not. The problem is when you donate your conscience to someone without one, it's consumed by a black hole. And that is definitionally insatiable.
I want to read something to you, and I want to paraphrase von Lathan, who has said, it is the height of white privilege to think that there is no amount of failing that Donald Trump can do to be considered a failure, no amount of criminal things that he can do to be considered a criminal, no amount of rapes to be a rapist, no amount of racist things to be racist, that there is no way to knock him down because he is now quite literally above the law. Now you cannot even say nobody's above the law. He is now literally above the law. This from the New York Times, John. Donald Trump told Americans exactly what he planned to do. He would use military force against his political opponents. He would fire thousands of career public servants. He would deport millions of immigrants in military-style roundups. He would crush the independence of the Department of Justice, use government to push public health conspiracies, and abandon America's allies abroad. He would turn the government into a tool of his own grievances, a way to punish his critics and richly reward his supporters. He would be a dictator, if only on day one. And when asked to give the power to do all of that, the voters said yes. This was a conquering of the nation not by force, but with a permission slip. Now America stands on the precipice of an authoritarian style of governance never before seen in its 248-year history. What are your thoughts there, John?
Well, it has been seen before, just not by all of the population. So let's get that right. An authoritarian style of governance that restricted the freedom of a few, relatively speaking, while ingratiating the many, or that's happened before. That's been the experience of many people before. So I think it's, again, we can either suggest that all of these people are stupid, which is so convenient for them and for us to do that patronizing thing where they just don't know any better, but they heard his words and they didn't care for the consequences because they thought the consequences didn't come for them. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is an indictment of any person's spirit. It's an indictment of any person's ethics. The idea that you know that what someone will do will be monstrous, but because of the target of that monstrosity won't be you, have at it. And when you know the monster, its hands and teeth still dripping with blood, is handing you a morsel. For me, the cost of that is too high. Dan, I expatriated this year.
Did you really?
I was born in America. I grew up in England, obviously, but I was born in America. I've paid taxes in both countries my entire life. And I expatriated this year because I knew this was coming. It came through in July. I am a British citizen only now. I stand in the long queue. Well, I don't. I've got global entry. But it is... I can't be associated with that. And I say that knowing that I could end up stateless if I take these principles with my own country, which is equally egregious in so many ways. It's simply our accent makes us sound less monstrous.
Meech, what's the process of expatriating? What do you actually do in order to make that so?
Oh, it's huge. You've got to... it's hugely expensive. They make it very expensive
Really?
now. Yeah, it used to be about 10 years ago when I first looked at it. Maybe a little bit more than that. I first looked at it. It was like, oh, you don't want to be an American? We're the best country in the world. Screw you. And it was pretty much a sign and go. And now it's a very expensive process where you have to go and be interviewed by a very specific kind of officer at one of the embassies who asks you questions about why, almost incredulous. Well, why would you want to not be American? And I don't want to be thought of as associated with the orange autocrat. I would be mortified if I thought my money was being used for the legal defense of, I don't know, police officers who were murdering indiscriminately Black people. So I don't want that anymore, and I won't have that anymore. I have my own guilt to deal with from this country, but the guilt of one government is quite enough for me.
The interviewer, the officer, are they trying to convince you trying to change your mind, or is it just simply trying to get to the bottom of your renouncing of the citizenship?
So technically, their job is to make sure I'm not being coerced, though I'm not being, forced into this for some other nefarious reason. But the tone at times feels just like a cartoon episode where their head is tilting and tilting and tilting. It's like, what? What? You're going to give up this? This is a passport to the world. And, especially now as I feel more exposed because Britain's not in the EU anymore. But I can't rationalize.
Right.
I can't rationalize the connection that I don't need to have when I have to worry about the poor behavior of my own government, even as it's a Labour government now, and the poor behavior of my government over the last 10 years.
What was the tipping point for you? It's not a small gesture from you to do all of this and go through this expense. You're very meticulous about, you've just chosen to announce that you're literally un-American. So explain to me what the tipping point was on that, because you have seen this coming. And while I cannot pretend to be surprised with 8 years of warning about what happened yesterday, I somehow find myself not surprised and also still shell-shocked. If both of those things are allowed to coexist, and those things coexisting make me feel weaker, make me feel fundamentally like I've got a sickness on me for 2 days.
Yeah. I watched as the political discourse in America, as we started to, in the beginning of the year, we knew what was going to happen in terms of politics, who was going to be the candidates. It changed obviously later on, but I knew Trump would be the Republican candidate. And I watched his behavior, and I watched the behavior of his, are they fans or are they,
I believe the technical term is cultists.
They are fanatics and cultists and worshippers, perhaps, is a better word and a more fitting word for what he wants. I watched the behavior of them, and then I watched the reporting, and I don't know who it was, but I watched one of the American news shows, and somebody said, it's amazing to me that we're talking about Kamala Harris and the weakness of certain policies and whatever else, but we're ignoring the fact, I wasn't expecting that image, but we're ignoring the fact that this man doesn't show up. And when he does show up, yes, you, Joker, yes. Yeah. And when he does show up, the things that he says are so deeply uncivil, unsuitable for a decent person of any standing, and certainly unsuitable for a man who would lead an entire nation. That to me is incredible. I watched it and I could see how when you normalize that and then create this standard for any other candidate, when you can watch one person who can barely grasp the door of a bin lorry, of a rubbish van, And what do you call them?
A garbage
refuse
truck.
thing.
A garbage
Yeah, there
truck.
you go. That's what I was looking
refuse
for.
thing
A
is
refuse thing. You can't even. It's just a damn garbage truck. You
Dan.
un-American elitist.
Yeah, but
it's just a damn
don't-
garbage truck.
He renounced
We
it all.
don't call it. We don't call it garbage. It's rubbish. Anyway, but he could barely grasp the door of that and nearly fell. And somehow that's not a commentary. But when Biden stumbled, it's the world. When he walks down a slope at a pace more akin to, my mother, and she's dead, then no commentary. When he said truly awful things, when he said things that were provably going to be terrible for the economy, I realized that he was going to win, and it was inevitable, and that I would either be a contributor to his government, his policies, or I would not. I left my house in Arizona when they passed SB 1070, State Bill 1070, which was the Show Your Papers bill. I left Arizona. I sold my house when that happened because I wasn't going to live in a state and pay taxes there where they were stopping the very people who make that state run in order to prove some kind of political point. Principles matter. They always have. They continue to matter today, despite the fact that the man at the head of your country has none.
I'm with you on all of that. Like, I'm very frustrated by the media coverage, the sane washing, apathy from voters, Joe Biden just deciding to continue to run even though he implied he wouldn't run for a second term. And I also have found that, like, since Tuesday, I've been very frustrated reading a lot of, like, the finger pointing and it's because of this thing, it's because of that thing. I've also, like, listening to Kamala's speech yesterday was like, I can't even listen to this. Like, I don't have any sort of satisfying outlet for how frustrated I feel. So, like, what can you say in your soothing accent that we love so much that can at least give me something?
They're
here?
going
Because
after Clooney.
Nothing's making
They're going
me feel
after
good.
George Clooney because he suggested that Biden get out of there.
What kind of country do you want? What kind of country do you want? And I don't mean this in the esoteric way. I mean, what are the tenets and principles? What is the experience that you want for the vast majority of people? I consider that picture and I push it out, not because of this next 4-year cycle, but I push it out into the distance because we all need a runway for strategy. And then I say, if that's what I want in 5 years' time, not knowing that I can't control everything, there's a myriad of things, the next Supreme Court appointments, the implementation of Project 2025, all of these things none of us can control. But if this is the picture that I want in 6 years from now, what needs to be true 5 years, 4, 3, 2, 1? What needs to be true 9 months from now, 6, 3? What needs to be true next month that I can control? And then I commit to control it. Then I commit to control it. Is it internal stuff, narratives in my head that I need to shift? Is it thinking about, because we live in a capitalist society, where am I going to put my money and where am I not? In terms of buying things, investing things. How am I going to show my disapproval? But which allies am I going to join with? Which people am I going to align myself with who have a similar enough vision to mine that together we might make a difference? That's what I do. 6 years from now, I know what I want it to look like. I know I want Britain in 6 years to stop talking about migrants as if we can live without them. I know that I want Britain to stop talking as if those who get lost in the sea in their journey for a better life have somehow done it to themselves. I want a Britain where I can listen from my house to the call to prayer from the East London Mosque and not hear stupid comments about it in the same way that they don't hear them when the bow bells from the local church ring. I know what I want to see in 6 years' time, and I have extrapolated down almost to the week what I have to do in order to make that happen. I take some days off, but for the most part, my eye is on that prize.
Meech, not to make this even more depressing of a conversation, but the Star Wars Rey movie has lost another screenwriter. This time, Stephen Knight has left. Yeah. This is now the third writer who's left. Before it was Damon Lindelof and Justin Britt Gibson. Are they ever going to get Star Wars right again, or have we lost it forever?
Well, here's the opportunity, right? Here's the opportunity. We can just go back to making Star Wars, where there are entire galaxies with people who are blue but none who are black. We can go back to making Star Wars, where, oh, well, there are lots of Jedi, but they're all white men. We could go back to making Star Wars where all the women dress in a way that is really for men. And then the Star Wars fans will be happy. The Star Wars fandom is
it's a great
bollocks,
idea.
man.
It's a great idea. Make Star Wars great again. I would run on that platform. Make it great again.
Yeah. I'd never watch it again.
Yeah, but who cares about you?
I know.
You're un-American.
You left.
You're un-American. And Chris Cody, while Amin was asking you that question, was whispering in my ear, that is definitely behind him, John Amaechi's pondering chair.
Where you just look out.
He goes into that chair behind
That's exactly
him.
right.
Yes.
He goes.
I can't believe it.
He goes
That's
back
exactly right.
You just sit in it and you ponder deep thoughts. You wait for them to come to you in a peaceful state while overlooking the city.
Every morning the sun rises over there and I sit in this chair with a cup of tea and think about how I can make my plan for 6 years from now a reality.
I want to talk to you about something that Ethan Strauss wrote, because I haven't gotten to look at it. I saw that he came after me. I'm a subscriber to his Substack, and he's coming after me because of some of the things that I said yesterday. And I purposely did like a sporting event yesterday when your team loses. I just sort of disconnected from everything. Didn't want to watch any of the televisions because I figured that something or anything that I said would end up getting attacked or weaponized because it's been happening for a while here. But I took from the tone and tenor of what I did from this Ethan Strauss article of like, oh, I see. So when I say to people that I feel like Donald Trump is a threat and that their choosing of him as a preference would then be a threat to me, what I see happening in the populace, very much what you just articulated, Meech, was the idea of, oh, this monster's going to protect me, but they're not going to see how obviously this is threatening to others in a way that's more overt from a politician than I've seen in America before. I've never seen it be quite this brazen, the indecency and the hate that becomes a threat to anyone who's other, and then what backs up behind him becomes complicit because you're not paying attention to what kind of threat this is to other. The whole thing is built on top of a foundation of threat to other. It's how it is he ended up winning. You can make it about the economy and immigration, but the way he ended up winning is I'll build walls and I'll get all these people out of here. And then somehow my people, Hispanics and others, think he's not talking about us. And I don't know how he thinks, how we arrive at the place that we think that we know who he's thinking about when he's talking about mass deportations.
Well, if you internalize, there's a couple of things here, right? If you internalize Trump's white privilege, then it happens for Black people, it happens for Latino, Hispanic people, it happens for lots of different people, right? You always think I'm recognizably one of the good ones. And so I don't sell fruit on the side of the streets. I don't day labor. I'm one of the good ones, and anybody would recognize that, not realizing that Trump is the archetype of the kind of person who won't recognize that. But it is an indictment of people. If you look at an individual and you say, well, I know that I'm a Christian and philandering is wrong, it's a sin. I know that I'm a Christian and I believe that sexual assault is wrong, or even frankly a good ethical person. But gas prices. But gas prices. And the thing is, I'm privileged. I know I'm privileged. I talk about my privilege all the time. I'm not suggesting
not more
that it's
privileged, not more privileged than I am. I get to present as a white man while being a minority. But I'm not arguing on behalf of me here. I'm arguing on behalf of who he's a threat to. Like, it's not because I think he's a threat to me. It's because I think he's a threat to the kind of people I care about and have built a media company around at a time that media is threatened and minorities are threatened.
Most people, you're assuming that they don't realize who the targets are. It's because they realize who the targets are that they think they're safe, because they don't think that they're one of those people. There's a wonderful woman on the internet. She does these videos where she strums a ukulele and sings, "I never thought the leopards would eat my face." There's going to be a lot of face eating going on in the next few months and years. Florida experienced it when your governor started trying to stop undocumented workers from working. They suddenly realized, oh, nothing gets built. Babies don't get taken care of. So much stops functioning. Same thing in Arizona when they tried it 12 years ago or so. But people will see. But don't forget, when consequences come, human beings are incredibly good. It's called motivated reasoning, of finding a way for the actual cause to be shifted again. So Britain right now is suffering tremendously. Our GDP is down, our trading is down, everything is hurt from a financial perspective of this country, including exacerbating the cost of living crisis because of Brexit. But even those people suffering the worst who voted for Brexit cannot acknowledge it, because acknowledging that decision has hurt them would force them to own that. And it's much easier to say, yeah, it's not really Brexit. It's those 6 brown people who came in a boat. It's much easier when you can shift the sin from you into a stereotype, one that is curiously absent, is often paradoxical. They both are taking all the benefits and taking all the jobs. This is the nature of human beings. And the next 4 years, I would say a decade, is going to be full of people with motivated reasoning, either doing one of two things: lying about how they voted and the decisions that have come about, because I think part of what happened here is there was a bunch of people who told their family, friends, dorm mates, business colleagues that they were voting for Kamala Harris and gleefully voted for Trump instead. And there's going to be other people who will admit that they voted for Trump and wanted what he stands for, but they'll say that the problems were actually the Democrats got in the way, or international leaders didn't agree, or the weather was bad, or I don't know, satellites or Musk or something will come and be the problem. It's the nature of human beings. The need to be innocent is deadly for other people.
Meech, you mentioned that folks here, will vote on one issue or vote on something that only matters to them. But it seems like I can't take more than a 5-minute Uber ride by myself without the drivers feeling free to tackle the trans problem. That's the conversation they want to get into. How can we protect trans people from what they're about to experience?
We can keep acknowledging our commitment to human dignity. We can keep, because the facts won't help, right? So because I'd love to tell you the facts would help. The idea that there are, 0.05 or some ridiculously tiny proportion of trans people out there, and of a percentage of all people. And I can tell you that to focus on that tiny number of people tells you that it is propaganda in and of itself. I can tell you that most of the sexual assaults that occur for people in bathrooms or elsewhere of women, whether they be trans women or women, occurs from men. Cisgendered, straight men abuse women. That's the predator. That's who we should be afraid of. And that doesn't matter, because they are a symbol of wokeness. They're a symbol of what many on the right think is a slippery slope. Well, if men can be women, then cats can be dogs, and the world is upside down. And the only thing we can do is tell everybody where we stand. This is what I do. I tell everybody where I stand. I give them what my team call the fence conversation, where I say this, like, this is the fence, and I'm not on it. Over here is sexism, misogyny, transphobia, homophobia, anti-blackness, racism of any kind, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. All the bad stuff is here, and here is the fence, and I am not on it. I am here, but I'm not here hoping that one of you will sort out these problems. I am here with fire. That's who I am, and I tell everybody this. And people don't behave uncivilly around me. And you might think it's because I'm a massive black man, but you know, and black people know, that when you're a massive black man, violence is the last thing you can do. It is not the force of my body that holds people. It is the force of my will, because I'm the one. You're going to blab on about how trans people are responsible for the downfall, drag queens are. You're going to blab on about how black people are all this and fatherless and black on black crime. And I'm the one. I'm going to hold you to account in that moment the very best way I can, because I know that's the role I can play in creating the vision of Britain I have in 6 years from now. It is exhausting. It's exhausting. One day it may kill me, but this is my commitment to the future I want to see for everybody. For everybody.
One of the things that seems to be under attack is the idea, and I don't know if I'm being reductive here when I say, like, I feel like I'm not that controversial. I feel like I'm just pro-decency and pro-equality, and the answer to my wanting to be pro-decency and pro-equality is clearly no. No, we're not going to be decent and equal. The answer is no. Am I wrong in making it that reductive about America? I want to get to fun things. I want to get to Stump the Meech. I want to get to an incredibly serious question from the Joker. But do I have this wrong?
So we live in a capitalist society, Britain and America both. And so that operates on a zero-sum game, this idea that if somebody else has more, somebody somewhere has to have less. And so what you're experiencing is people thinking, oh my God, if trans people aren't killed in the street for being, unusual, if black people aren't disproportionately targeted by the police, then I will be. The bad stuff that's happening to them currently almost feels like insurance against it happening to you because of this zero-sum game. And all I would remind people, I would remind everybody watching this. You are right. Most things in this world are finite resources, but not everything. And dignity is one of those things that is not a finite resource. Indeed, it is one of the most amazing concepts. It's one of the most amazing gifts in the world, because it's one of the few things that when you grant a person or a group of people dignity, both parties get more. That's what I keep in my mind always. It doesn't mean you have to be a sucker. It doesn't mean you have to tolerate abuse from people. But what it does mean is you don't have to look at the world and think, oh my goodness, if these people stop being persecuted, will I be? You can simply decide that the world you want in 6 years' time will not tolerate the persecution of any people on the basis of their identity, any people on the basis of their religious party or the religious affiliation or otherwise. That's what we can decide. Dignity is not a zero-sum game.
John, I've seen you refer to Trump as a classic fascist. And as someone who is Jewish and grew up going to Hebrew school and learning about the rise of Adolf Hitler, I learned a lot about fascism and the signs of them. And obviously these things are sort of being repeated in the rhetoric that exists right now. But one of the biggest things that we see when it comes to the rise of fascism in any country is the apathy. The people who are willing to let it happen aren't necessarily motivated by these things that you've been so eloquently talking about, but who are willing to turn a blind eye because of what was coined in 2016, economic anxiety, or whatever you might have that allows you to turn the other way. Specifically, right now, we've seen Gen Z white men really going toward the right. And my question is sort of, and obviously aren't right-leaning necessarily, but more than you would expect. My question would be is how do we reach those people? Because you can present two quotes from Trump and Hitler and say these are exactly the same factually and be told, no, they're not. You're lying to me. So how do I or you or anyone else reach the group of apathetic folks to make them hear what it is that we're trying to lay out factually?
Yeah. So you're absolutely correct that apathy is indeed. I thought I turned it off my camera doing that. I apologize.
I love
Apathy
that
is
it's doing
indeed-
that. I'd like for your answer right now to just keep doing that as you answer
Okay, good.
his question that way. Just
Got to
keep
see the
doing
ponder
that.
chair.
Yeah. Let's keep having it go back and forth while addressing, the easiest subject matter.
The easiest, simplest subjects in the world. Let's turn that off. I have turned it off now. Good. All right, good. So now this should be relatively normal.
I liked it better
So
the other way.
apathy-
I got to be honest. It's more fun the other way.
Apathy is indeed a feature. When you look at most of the lists, the 14 characteristics, the 11 characteristics, the 9 characteristics of fascism, apathy of the populace is one of the characteristics that is in there. So how do you reach them? I'm not sure I'm going to be reaching them, certainly not in America. I don't know what I can do other than try to be the anti-Tate, the anti-Trump, to be a neutralizing agent, a voice not necessarily always a reason, but a voice that you can listen to that you know cares about you, where you can see an alternative to the kind of paternal, tribal, cultish care that it seeks to induce you and almost sell you something or have you buy something more likely. And give people a voice that they can come to that doesn't tell them that everything is going to be fine, and it doesn't tell them that nothing is their fault, but rather that tells them there are solutions if you're willing to do the work. And I am certainly willing to walk with you while that happens. There isn't a simple solution here, but what we do need is more voices elevated in traditional news media, in your kind of news media, that constantly give people a chance without feeling judged, but to know that there is a different voice. There is a different theory of change for this world, than that there are bad people over there and it's their fault and I am innocent and blameless. There's a different theory of change that says I have agency and choice, and I may have made some bad ones. I may have not put in the right kind of effort, but my life is still redeemable, and here are some steps to that. The problem is my approach is not as sexy as telling you, if you pay me £30 a month,
That's much
I can
better.
make sure you've got a girlfriend
That's much better.
and some
Yes.
2 cars.
Yes. That's a much better ad campaign than give Jeremy more voice, which no one in America would vote for.
That's not true, Dan. People like me sometimes.
Let's go ahead and do Stump the Meech here with John Amaechi. Are you ready? Let's do a palate cleanser here. This isn't even Stugotz. I'm not even going to tell you who this is or what this is, but please tell me what this person or thing is trying to say.
The hemorrhoid. The hemorrhoid. The hemorrhoid. The hemorrhoid.
This is impossible.
Well, this is not part of it, right? So I'm not losing
No, you wouldn't lose. It's just a
Little
guess.
appetizer.
It's just a little something to get us started.
OLI.
The hemorrhoid.
I have no idea what that is. I've got
The
nothing.
hemorrhoid.
It helps that she's talking about American football.
Yes, the Hail Mary. Well, but it's also
Oh,
religious.
the Hail Mary.
It's
The
religious.
Hail-Mary?
Yeah, he knows what the expression is. He knows.
I know the expression, but I never would have got that.
The hemorrhoid.
All right, so an easy one to start. We will now give you the 5 Stugotz ones. Look at him. He thinks he's ready.
Yeah.
He is never actually ready.
He's stretching.
But there has been a time or two that because we failed on our end, he somehow has succeeded because
What you've just done there, right there, is exactly what we've just been talking about. I've won.
No, you have not
I've
won.
won.
Not legally and fair. No, I would not. I would not.
Stole it.
No,
You
you
stole
stole it. You stole it. It
Nice
was not,
job, Trump.
It was
Nice
not,
job.
Yes, it was not done cleanly because yes, you're black. Let's go ahead and do the first sound from Stugotz.
Consistent.
Oh, I think I know this one.
Consistent.
I think I know this.
I think I know it too.
Consistent.
Let's get his guest first, and then Amin and I will guess. I think everyone
One
knows
more
this.
time.
Consistent. Consistent. Consistent.
I don't know. Considering
I would guess consistent.
Consists of.
Consist of, consistent. Which is it, Chris Cody?
Dan is right. It's consistent.
Consistent.
consistent,
Consistent.
terrible.
And that was the easy
He
one.
remains completely confounding.
Yes. He always will be. It's his greatest consistency. Let's go to his next word, please.
I
I think I know this one too.
Is this? Oh. I thought it was embellished, but then I'm like, I don't think that's a word he would ever say.
I think that's him quitting in the middle of Belichick.
I guess it compelled.
I can't get proper names.
Oh, I don't know if that's right or not. That's just what I'm guessing. I don't know if it's right. I don't. Chris Cody's got the keys to the kingdom back there.
What's John's
I
guess?
don't even know what game Belichick does.
Okay, he does the game of football. That's what. But you can
Was
get.
it
We need a guess. We need a guess from you. A formal submission.
one more time? I don't know. A bell?
Take some time to ponder about it.
I'm going to give you the full context here. Stugotz will tell you what it is.
An embellishment penalty.
Wow! You
Embellishment.
had it.
Oh, you had it. You
No
had
way.
it. It was right
Oh, that
there.
one's got a sting.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to give it to him. I'm going to give it to him because he said it to make the game
decent
interesting.
human being right
Well,
there.
thank you. I'm pro decency and pro equality.
I appreciate that.
Yes, let's
Plus,
go.
I did guess it.
You
You could have just told me, "Yay, you've got it." When I said it,
I didn't know. I don't know what the answers to these are. Chris Cody's got it. Number 3
Chris
here.
Cody
It's-
tried to screw me over there. I see what's happening
It's
here.
1-1. Let's see what we've got here.
These are not words; they are utterances. These are. He's been punched in the sternum, and that noise comes
6
out.
and 2-3s, really.
That's true. I'm going to punch Stugotz.
Pause.
Pause was his guess, Chris Cody. Pause.
And here's the
Is
answer.
it
We
Paul-
should all toot our horns.
Horns?
We should all toot our horns.
Yeah.
He actually went, "Caw," like he actually made the sound of a horn.
It is like
That is terrible.
someone hit him in the sternum with like a log.
That's what it sounded like.
He is now
See?
1 for 3. He's got to get the last 2 to win. No chance. No chance whatsoever. Let's see what we have here.
Rebuild.
I'll offer you a guess if you'd like one. I think it might be him trying to start rehabilitate.
It's a really good guess.
Rebuild.
See, now that's all I can hear. I was going to say rebuild.
That's a good guess too. How about I give you both of them, just to see if we
I'll
can
take
keep it
rebuild
close.
and rehabilitate.
All right, let's give him both of them.
Here's the answer.
How rehabilitated.
Ah,
Yes.
All right.
I see. This is unsatisfying because,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, that's
You
unsatisfying.
didn't earn it.
I know you didn't earn it.
I didn't earn it.
It's
Well, but
rigged.
That's because you're a DEI
No.
candidate here for this.
Oh,
That's
you know
why-
it?
That's why.
I've got one of those black jobs, you know.
As you know, Meech, the last one's always super easy. So here's the last one.
Yep, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it.
They're laughing in the other room at whatever Chris Cody offered.
I
as
told
a
him what
guess.
it is.
Oh man.
He's never gonna get this.
Just rest your brain, Meech. Just rest your brain.
This is 2 words.
I think I know it.
No, you don't.
Cat.
If Dan gets this one, I'm quitting.
Oh, I'm intrigued by that offer.
He's never gonna get it.
Category 5.
Category.
What's your guess, John?
Catgut. I don't know. Catgut.
All right, here's the right
I
answer.
got your tongue. Italian kid.
It's Italian kids.
Dante DiVincenzo?
Let's listen to it one more time.
Italian kid.
I mean,
That's not fair. That's not even fair.
It is not fair.
No.
But I'll take my 1 and take it as a win.
What? You can't win. You lost.
I know. But I'll still take the 1 as a victory.
Good seeing you, Meech. Always good seeing you.
Good to see you. Take care of yourselves, please.
That's right. It's time for Thursday Thunder, and it's brought to you by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear all about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Tony, what do you got?
All right, guys. NFL, we've got a big game tonight that feels like it should be a Sunday night game, not a Thursday night game, but that's neither here nor there.
I think it's here and there. You've declared it a double statement game.
It is. It's an absolute double statement game, Dan, because the Bengals, don't look now, are one of the hottest teams in the league. Joe Burrow's playing at an MVP level. If you put his stats against blind stats against any other quarterback in the league right now, you're like, oh, wow, that guy is far and away the MVP. I think he's like 15 touchdowns, 3 picks or something like that on the season. He's playing awesome. The Ravens, if they can beat the Bengals in this double statement game, it's a statement win for them, beating one of the hottest teams in the NFL. If the Bengals beat the Ravens tonight, that means, you know what? Bengals are back. So it is a double statement game. So we've got cooked up a little longer of a parlay this week. Usually we do a 3-leg parlay. This week we're doing a 4-leg parlay for Thursday Thunder.
Really?
Yeah.
This is aggressive.
But they're correlated. Okay? So we look at...
We're no good at the 3-teamers. Let's try more.
Yeah, correct. Now you get it. What's the definition of insanity, Dan?
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different
Exactly.
result.
So we're going to do something different to mix it up, get us back, get the mojo going. Bengals defense, not good. We already know that. Ravens defense, sneaky, not that good, right? Jameis Winston carved them up a couple of games ago. This is a offensive game right now. We're going Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, both of the quarterbacks, over 250 on the...
All the overs you're taking.
On the air. Over 250.
Game.
Yep, over 250 through the air between Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. And then their number 1 receivers, Jamar Chase, who's been playing awesome this year. Zay Flowers, been very good this year. Both of them over 80 yards receiving.
Good God.
So we got quarterbacks over 250, number 1 wide receivers over 80. That gives you a beautiful plus 700 on DraftKings Sportsbook for tonight's game.
Okay, 4-team parlay.
Four-leg parlay.
Fireworks on a Thursday.
Yeah.
We have a slight correction. The definition of insanity is the state of being seriously mentally ill. Madness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like me, the Joker. And also, that quote that you have never really happened. It's attributed to Einstein, but there's no evidence that he ever said it.
Well, Dan, congrats. You said it. That
I
means
did.
we're attributing
I mean,
it
come
to
on,
you. Thank
Dan.
you, Dan.
I did,
Dan
but
claims
it's
it.
evidently it's fake news. It is not something that's actual philosophy of any kind. But since Tony got us started off with football, allow us to do a couple of football-related things with Tony. We have not gotten to his football top 5 this week. Let's do that with the different music. Oh, you forgot?
Well,
You're looking around. You
we
don't
can
know.
do the analog version.
No, well,
Wait
wait a minute. That's not what it sounds like at all, though. That is just, it sounds like,
Hey!
yeah. I don't, okay.
There it is.
Dan, we're on it.
Vida Loca.
Hey!
That's a different segment. All right, Tony's Top 5, as usual, sponsored by the Haters. Thank you, Haters, for sponsoring all the things that we do and making all the things beautiful. We'll start in the OLI, Dan, because last week we didn't really do a Tony's Top 5. We got brushed under the rug. I'm not here to be upset about it. No biggie.
Okay, but now you're just going to stuff both top 5s
No.
into one top 5?
No. I would not do that.
Because Amin's got a top 5, too, that we can do.
That's another top 5 I'm very excited about because we spoke about that off air. But OLI number 1.
Can you guys keep your off-air conversations off-air and stop telling us on-air that you had off-air conversations?
Your credit what credit's due, Dan.
I don't know why you guys need to keep crediting each other for this information that you're embargoing.
No
that's not that
talking.
interesting.
Oh,
when
lie
you
number
reveal
one.
it.
How have the Ravens lost 3 games?
It's a good question.
Buzzsaw team, and it's like I look at the loss column,
Yeah.
3 losses. I'm like,
It's
huh.
weird, yeah.
Interesting. O-line number 2. I know it's after a loss, but I still feel a heartbeat on this Miami Dolphins team. There's a bit of a heartbeat there, Dan.
That's an
He's
asinine
not.
thing
They're
to
not
say.
dead yet.
How many
They're not
hearts?
dead yet.
How many hearts do Dolphins have?
Heart of hearts.
I think one. But this one's got a.
That's like in the movies,
Mm-hmm.
Dan, when they're like, the person's dead, there's nothing we can do. And we start walking away, but then the machine goes, beep. I'm like, wait, what was that?
All right, so if they run off a 9-game winning streak,
I'm telling
Jessica's
you.
shaking
we
her
killed
face
the
at
heart
you.
in their chest, but the heart in their ass is still
Okay,
beating.
very good.
Still beating, Dano. All right, we'll get to number 5.
Get a towel for that.
We walk into your trap, and we take your trap. No cap. Falcons rising up just the right time.
You sure about that?
I am definitely sure about that. Even though Drake London's hurt, but that's
It's
not.
just because of Kirk Cousins. That's it. They're
For
I
the
mean-
celebration? Wasn't that him?
No, he landed. No, he landed on his hip, and
But then he
and
got up, did a celebration, and then left the game. with
you
an
know how.
injury.
It is.
Don't police someone's joy even if it
Exactly.
injures them.
What are we doing?
Kevin Durant.
Number 4, Saquon pushing the limits on human athleticism. I know we talked about it throughout the week. It's Thursday. I get that. But can you imagine taking Saquon Barkley and switching him with like Jim Brown and then putting him in like 1960s era football and what those people would be like, this guy's not here. Where'd this guy come from?
I feel like Jim Brown was Saquon Barkley during that time, and it's why nobody can do anything with him.
And then take Saquon Barkley and put him back there. He'd just be back hopping over everybody the entire time.
Yes, a guy who's got a construction job that he leaves on Saturday overtime to get to Sunday's
Try
game
to tackle
Jim
Saquon Barkley.
Brown. Yes, that would be would be hard to do.
Number 3. Quietly. The Chargers are 5-3 and playing good ball.
Yeah, nobody believes in the Chargers. Yeah, they're great.
Defensively.
They're very good.
No one believed in Justin Herbert.
He was hurt at the beginning of the season, but they're getting back on
The Chargers are allowing 12 points a game. Nobody's noticed.
You're too loud.
Sorry.
Nobody believed in Harbaugh.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know how to whisper.
5-3. Also, you heard about it earlier. Quietly, Bengals 4-5. Joe Burrow looking like the MVP.
Well, but you already said that
I know,
loudly.
but
Said
was
that
part-
so loud.
You said it loud.
But that part-
you can't
but that
tell
part
a
was-
secret after you
Tony's
said
got a
it
great
loud.
whisper.
But that
I
part
could
was-
listen to that all day.
Thank you. That part was quiet.
So could Stugotz. Number 2.
Number 2. The Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls between Daniel Jones' most recent 2 passing touchdowns at MetLife Stadium.
Jesus Christ.
What happened?
So we had a Daniel Jones touchdown, then we had 2 Chiefs Super Bowls, then we had another Daniel Jones
Jesus Christ.
touchton
Yeah,
passing
it's a
at
long time.
MetLife. That's
a long
yeah.
time.
We paid him and let Saquon walk.
Right, correct. What if you take Daniel Jones back to the 1960s? Best player on the planet.
Do I need to make Tony listen to all the shows to make sure that his top 5s don't have repeat material from other shows?
Not
Because
fair. It's
if-
Thursday.
I know, but if you come
The
with
schedule is not my fault, Dan. I come out with these Sunday night as I'm doing Sunday Night Live. By the way, watch that after your NFL games on Sunday. I do them Sunday night, and then I get scheduled on Thursday.
Okay.
What do you want me to do? You want me to not do it?
He's absolutely right, by the way.
What do you want me to do?
They can be updated though, and you can listen to the shows.
You guys
and
going to
then
do double the work because he doesn't know what the schedule is?
I want him to edit his
So
copy
who said that?
so that he's paying as much attention to the show as the listener who cares to hear his opinion on things.
Number 1, nobody's going to have this one. You ready? I don't think any Cuban after 1959 has said this aloud, but I'm about to say it.
Oh, boy.
Dan, I'm a really big fan of what the commies are doing. Really big fan.
Yeah, everybody seems to be watching.
Did somebody else
us.
have that take?
Commies in Washington, I did not have as something
Okay, just
that
making
would
sure.
work in 2024, but I think a lot of people are big fans of that. Thank you, Chris. Head on a swivel. I don't think you have music for a Means Top 5, but if you did, it's top 5 white athletes with black names. I don't know why it is he wants to do this. He's been telling me all show that he wants to do it. I don't know where it started. I think, was there something that came up on a television screen
Yeah.
in here that distracted you during the first hour of the show?
Yeah, so the quarterback for Georgia Tech is named Haynes King, but he's white. And so
What?
Yeah. So it got my mind going. I was like, oh, what are the other athletes who have names that if you've never seen them, you say, oh, that's a black athlete. But then you see him like, oh my God, this guy's white. So are we waiting for a bed music or?
I think this is Bill Simmons invented this game. It's the Reggie Cleveland All-Stars, correct? Is that not the original playing of this game, which is Khalil Green was a shortstop for the Padres as well? Do I have this wrong? The Reggie Cleveland
No,
All-Stars?
you got it right,
I
Dan.
think
You got
it's
it
the
right. We're
origins
trying to
of
do
the
something
game.
here.
Sorry, we don't
Okay.
listen to Bill Simmons.
All right. Yeah, I don't. So I wouldn't know, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, I just want to give proper credit if we're stealing an idea.
Oh, now we're giving credit. Okay.
Yeah. What?
Well, if nobody knows, then you don't have to give credit.
That's correct. Thank you, Izzy. Thank you. If it's just something that Tony said in your ear, you don't have to give him credit for that as something given only to your ear.
I think Izzy was saying if nobody knows of the original game, then he doesn't have to give it credit. What were you saying, Izzy?
I'm right about everything. Let's just keep going.
Just don't use a tier maker because if you do, the world is going to end. Go ahead.
All right.
Well, no, but Jessica's got a Lord of the Rings tier maker.
Stolen.
Stolen. But she's gotten a lot of applause
came
for
up
that.
with that on my. I don't know what you're talking about. That was my idea that I came up with on my own. By the way, the reaction. Thank you for bringing it up, Dan. The feedback from the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power tiers was. I just want to give a heartfelt thank you to everyone who listened, commented. It was overwhelmingly
A real community.
positive.
The internet could be a positive place on very rare
it warmed
occasions.
my soul. And a lot of people really hate that show, and I understand why. I didn't love it all either, but they did like Jess's Tears. So maybe we'll have a new Jess's Tears next week because people really like that I came up with that idea, and I might do it again.
We can give you tears every day. I'll give you liberal tears on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday. We'll give you Jessica's tears, and now we've got the Reggie Cleveland All-Stars as brought to you by Amino Hassan.
I don't want to call it that because then it seems like I did.
It's the Haynes King All-Stars.
Yeah, Haynes King.
Is he playing on Saturday?
Wait to see.
Okay.
A lot of people are going to be surprised when the quarterback of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket, Haynes King, ends up being white.
Yep.
I also feel like it's safer for Amin to do this list than Bill Simmons.
It was a different time back then. Where white guys could say, "Well, guess what? That time is back." All right, hit the music. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to start with some OLIs, Dan, as we usually do. Right? OLI, Quincy Armstrong. Hall of Famer in the NFL. Also, Tai Long. Hunter, remember him? And then another OLI for you, Ron Baker. Wichita State.
Ron Baker's a
Sneaky.
good one.
Ron Baker is good because I tell you, hey, he's the leading scorer at Wichita State. What do you think he looks like? His name is Ron Baker. It's not that mop of blonde hair.
Yep. All right, here we go. Number 5, Curtis Painter.
I love Curtis Painter.
Remember him, backup quarterback?
Not only do I remember him, that Colts team, I think, was close to winless. And when he took the field for the first time, I thought he was black. Like, that's a thing that actually happened. I did not know.
All the way up until him running out onto the field.
Yeah, until he dropped back to pass and I saw him throw the ball, I did not know that he was white.
Was it the Curtis or the Painter there?
It's both. It's both. Curtis for sure.
Painter gives off white to me.
Painter? No way. Curtis Painter? That's a black guy. That's a black guy who leads the MAC in scoring in basketball.
Put it on the poll, by the way.
Curtis Baker,
In like 1998.
6'5", power forward.
Painter, not Baker. That's Ron Baker.
Curtis Painter.
Curtis
yes.
Painter.
Curtis
yes.
Painter. Number 4, Levon Kendall. Played for Pitt basketball. He's Canadian.
I might have gone Hispanic there.
Levon
Kendall.
Kendall.
Yeah,
It's spelled
Kendall said Spanglish the way you
He's
said
here
it.
from Miami. That's why they call him
And
Kendall.
Hold on.
Kendall.
Levon spelled Levon.
Yeah, well, that changes
That's
it.
black.
Yeah,
That's a
changes
black
it.
name, folks.
Yeah, but you didn't pronounce it that way. You're
Levon.
right. Yes, you're right.
Number 3, Khalil Green. Won't spend too much time on him because apparently somebody else did this
I'm
list.
sorry,
and
I
that,
didn't mean to ruin it for you. It's a good one.
Number 2, and I remember the day I found this out. It was on this show. Freddie Freeman.
I see how you would think that guy was black.
That's a black name, Freddie Freeman.
And great at a party, too.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to say that he's black. I'm saying that's a guy that's the life of the party that he walks into just because his name is Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman hosts the party, and he's on the grill. You walk in the house, you in the backyard, he's got the
Freddie!
Kiss the chef. He's got the spatula in one hand. He's got a beer in the other. And he tells everybody, hey, you got to grab a cold ones from the fridge.
A lot of teeth.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman.
Everybody loves Freddie's parties.
And then number 1, it's the reason why we're doing this list, Haynes King.
Well, that's not the way you play the game.
Nah.
You don't name.
Well, number 1 was Khalil Green originally, but then you fucked that up, so then I had to rearrange.